I was just passing through the immortal realm when I made a fatal mistake. I got arrogant and shouted, "At the peak of immortality where Huai stands, there is only heaven." The heavenly Tao didn't appreciate the attitude. It suppressed me instantly, throwing my soul into an endless cycle of reincarnation where I was cursed to die a gruesome death every single time. In my first life, my fiancée tried to flex her power and break our engagement. I dropped the classic line, "Never look down on a poor youth," and set off to become a legend. But just 100 miles from home, I wandered into a cave and got swallowed whole by a giant snake. In my second life, I avoided the snake and headed west. That went well until a tiger tore my throat out. After that, it only got worse. I was scammed into slave labor in the mines. I was kidnapped by evil cultivators to be used as human ingredients for their pills. I even died in my sleep once, just because two powerful masters were fighting nearby and the shockwave turned me into paste. Finally, in my 8th life, I caught a break. I seized every opportunity and climbed the ranks until I became a rank 9 venerable. I was one of the strongest beings in existence, but during a battle with some mysterious assassins, I accidentally set fire to a bamboo forest. It turned out that forest was the meditation grounds of the martial empress. That woman was a rank 10 monster. She walked out of the sea of flames with 2 ice blades and sliced my kidneys right out of my body. I opened my eyes and found myself back at the familiar Su family estate, cold sweat dripping down my face. I am officially the first rank 9 expert in history to die from a kidney removal. I was so close to surviving until the end, but fate had other plans. Just then my maid, Xiao He, appeared at the door, gasping for breath. She told me the clan head wanted to see me in the meeting hall immediately. I looked up. It was time to face my destiny once again. I looked up at the Hunter 51 moon hanging high in the sky and realized it was finally time. The classic, cliché marriage annulment was about to go down. My maid, Xiao He, was just about to leave when my words stopped her dead in her tracks. She stood there, her face a mask of pure confusion. I didn't wait for her to ask. I just looked at her and said, "You know that girl I'm engaged to?" That toxic woman finally realized she's not on my level. She's the one begging to call it off. "Young master, you're just incredible," Xiao He cheered, clapping her hands. But it was obvious. Her cute face was practically screaming that she was just humoring me. "Are you making fun of me?" I asked, pointing toward the massive stone pillar nearby. "Let's make a bet. If I can smash this pillar with one hit, you're warming my bed tonight." Xiao He shook her head frantically. "No way," I smirked and raised the stakes. "And if I fail, I'll increase your monthly salary 10 times over starting next month." That did it. Her body trembled, 10 times the pay. "It's a bet," she shouted. In her head, she was already counting the money. Everyone in the Su family knew the eldest young master was a weakling who couldn't even carry a single bucket of water, let alone shatter a stone pillar thicker than a man's waist. But while she was dreaming of riches, I was already raising my palm. A dull explosion rocked the air. Boom! The shockwave didn't just crack the pillar, it shredded the entire room. In an instant, even my old wooden chair was reduced to nothing but splinters and dust. Seeing the destruction, Xiao He's face went ghost white. She stood there, paralyzed and trembling. Her only thought? "It's over, I'm doomed." As for me, I stared at my hands, feeling the blood and energy surging through my veins. My heart raced with pure adrenaline. It was true, I had actually returned to this world, and I brought my entire cultivation base back with me. I let out a low smirk and patted Xiao He on the head. "Relax, your mission is already complete." And that was only the beginning. "I'll handle the rest myself. Now go get cleaned up and wait for your master's favor." Xiao He felt like his entire world was collapsing. With a muffled gag and his head hung low, he vanished around the corner of the manor. This was the darkest day of his life. He never imagined that a single high-stakes gamble would end like this, losing himself to the most notorious man in the city. The eldest son of the Su family, as he disappeared, I exhaled a long, heavy breath. It was time. I stepped onto the ancient bluestone path, walking toward the crossroads of my fate. The Su family council hall stood ahead, a structure as old as the family's ancestral shrine itself. Its weathered wooden doors had endured centuries of storms, yet they still stood, bearing a burden no object should have to carry. Inside, the atmosphere was suffocating. My eyes first landed on a girl in a flowing red dress, followed by a youth standing as straight as a spear. But I didn't stop there. My gaze shifted to the high seat, locking onto the middle-aged man staring me down with pure hatred. This was Su Zhengheng, the current head of the Su family, and my father in name only. The moment he saw me, the veins on his forehead began to throb. "You disgrace," he roared. "Kneel before me." I simply curled my lip into a smirk. I remained standing, my back straight, completely unfazed by his explosive rage. The second elder, seated beside the patriarch, let out a tired sigh. He reached out, pinning Su Zhengheng down before he could lunge from his seat. "Zhengheng, control yourself," the elder whispered. "We can settle private matters later. Don't let the world see our family as a joke." "A joke?" Su Zhengheng hissed, his voice cold enough to freeze blood. "This bastard dragged our reputation through the mud years ago. There is no pride left to defend." Disgusted, he closed his eyes, refusing to even look at me. The second elder looked exhausted, his gaze shifting toward me, the nonchalant, arrogant heir, Su Huai, and that's when he delivered the news I had been waiting for. "Meet the three guests from the Situ family." Situ Zhiruo rises from her seat. She bows to Su Zhengheng and the second elder before turning to face me. "I am here to discuss the marriage contract," she says coldly. "The one arranged by our grandfathers." I look into her icy eyes. A mocking smile curls on my lips. "A marriage contract? Are you that desperate to marry me? Or did you finally realize you are not worthy of my status?" The council hall falls into a deathly silence. The Su family juniors start whispering in the shadows. How dare he speak to her like that? Does he really think he is still the grand young master? But some look on with pure admiration. They never expected him to be this bold. Zhiruo stops her elder from lashing out. She stares at me across the vast hall. "Master Su, I have shown you nothing but respect," she says. "But you should know, I just passed the entrance exam for the Heavenly Frost Palace. I leave for the Immortal sect in a few days. You know exactly what that means." I raise an eyebrow in surprise. In my past lives, I usually walked away before she could reveal this, but the Heavenly Frost Palace is a very interesting place. In my previous life, their great elder was caught using living cultivators for alchemy. When the righteous sects raided their secret chambers, they found rows of human herbs, men and women, floating in spirit liquid like common ingredients, and that was only the beginning of the horror. I wondered if Situ Zhiruo ever truly reached the top. Thinking about her future, the resentment in my heart suddenly vanished. I looked at her, my voice cold and indifferent. "Miss Situ, you're right. We belong to two different worlds now. It's best we part ways and never look back." Situ Zhiruo's eyebrow twitched. Su Huai's sudden change in attitude caught her completely off guard. She stared at me, searching for a crack in my composure. Finally, she convinced herself I was just terrified of the heavenly cold palace's reputation. To her, my calm face was nothing more than a desperate attempt to save my wounded pride. She pursed her lips and shoved a letter into my hand with a look of pity. "We were supposed to be married in 1 year," she said solemnly. "Take this letter as proof. If you are willing to wait 10 years for me, and if I fail to reach my goals by then, I will return. I'll honor our engagement and spend the rest of my life as your wife." My hand trembled. For a split second, I wanted to slap that envelope right across her face. "If you're going to break the engagement, then just do it. Don't try to keep me around as your backup plan for the next decade." This pious saint act was absolutely revolting. I didn't waste another breath on her. Leaving the stunned Situ Zhiruo behind, I turned and walked away from that miserable place without looking back. 30 minutes later, I arrived at a weathered, ancient courtyard. I stood there in silence, staring at the decaying wooden door that bore the marks of countless years. Finally, I reached out to knock. "Stop knocking and just come in," a voice echoed from inside. I pushed the heavy door open, stepping into the shadows. and that's when I saw who was waiting for me. Inside the Su family courtyard, the former legend Su Changge sits beneath a tree, drowning his past in wine. Across from him sits Liu Qingmu, a white-haired elder tending to a massive 7-foot-tall crimson furnace. I approach silently, my eyes locked on the dancing flames. Su Changge smiles and points toward his old friend. He asks if I have any interest in the path of alchemy. I just shake my head with a bitter smile. I am not cut out for that kind of work. Su Changge laughs out loud. He reminds me how I used to call myself the chosen one every single day. He asks if that humiliating broken engagement finally killed my ambition. I pour him more wine, keeping my tone light and confident. A real man doesn't worry about a lack of women. Give me a few years, and I'll bring home a fairy 10,000 times better than Situ Zhiruo. Su Changge raises an eyebrow. He asks if I already have someone in mind. I tell him the truth. There is a woman I can't stop thinking about, and she belongs to the Yanlei Immortal sect. He is shocked that I even know someone from such a prestigious place. I just look at him and laugh. People say the women there are peerless beauties. I figured the most beautiful one of them all is destined to be my wife. I stare into the roaring furnace, but I do not see the fire. Instead, I see a girl wrapped tightly in layers, working in a scorching room. I wonder if she is suffering in that heat. My internal world is shattered when Su Changge shouts my name. Su Huai, why are you staring at that broken furnace like a damn fool? Su Changge's voice snaps me back to reality. I force a smile and tell him the truth. I want to see the world beyond these walls. In fact, I came here today specifically to say goodbye. The old man pauses, his hands trembling for just a second. He admits that traveling will be good for me. But then he issues a dark warning. The Yanlei Immortal sect is one of the 4 supreme powers. Their requirements are brutal and their disciples are heartless. He tells me that if I fail, I cannot let it break my spirit. With a dismissive wave, he tells me to get out. I pretend to be hurt, asking if he's really kicking his grandson out so soon. The old man scoffs with pure disdain. He asks if I'm actually waiting for him to pay for my trip. I mutter a complaint and bolt toward the exit, but as I cross the threshold, an object arcs through the air. A ring lands perfectly in my arms. Then his voice echoes from behind me. Don't die out there. I'm still waiting for you to take care of me in my old age. I clutch the ring and drop to my knees. I kowtow one last time before closing the heavy wooden door. The moment my presence disappears, the atmosphere in the room changes. Beside the alchemy furnace, Liu Qingmu finally opens his eyes. The fire dies out, leaving behind nothing but ruined medicinal slag. Su Changge takes one look and starts mocking him. The great master failed his refinement again. Liu Qingmu's face twitches with frustration. He wants to snap back, but he stops himself. He can see it in the old man's eyes. Su Changge is like a candle flickering in the wind, and for both of them, time is finally running out. Liu Qingmu wanted to smack the kid's head in. He needed to teach him the true meaning of an alchemist's dignity. Taking a deep breath, the old man finally spoke. That kid is a freak. Su Changge poured a cup of wine and laughed. You are weak, old man, but your senses are still sharp. His gaze turned icy. I know exactly what you are thinking. My body might be broken, but I can still feel it. An 8th rank venerable at the initial stage. In this entire territory, almost no one can match that kind of power. Liu Qingmu stood up abruptly. He is only 17. I checked his body. He has the power, but his talent is absolute garbage. He leaned in closer, his voice trembling. What if a demon lord possessed him? Su Changge did not even blink. Not a chance. Then explain it, Liu Qingmu demanded. How does he have that level of cultivation? Su Changge set down his glass and looked him dead in the eye. Simple, because he is my grandson. Liu Qingmu stood frozen, unable to say a single word. Outside the small courtyard, the young master held a ring up to the sun. This was a high-grade spatial ring. It was far better than the one he looted from a legendary hero in his past life. It seemed his grandfather had a glorious past after all. With his current strength, the boy could see right through the 2 old men inside. The alchemist was only a measly 7th rank, but his grandfather was a different story. His body was like a leaking bucket, barely holding on to second-rank energy. There was a strange, dark aura lingering in his core, and that was the real reason the old man had given up and returned to the Su family. But he didn't know his grandson was about to change everything. I pushed my consciousness into the storage ring and my jaw hit the floor. The internal space was massive, thousands of cubic meters of pure storage. Half of it was packed with mountains of high-grade spirit stones. In the corner, I spotted a few rows of bookshelves, but they only held a handful of yellowed ancient texts. My eyes locked onto a tattered book hidden in the furthest corner. Its cover was worn to threads, looking like it had been through a century of heavy use. I figured if the old man had read this one so many times, it had to contain a forbidden secret that could shake the entire continent. I reached out with pure reverence and opened it. The pages were so blurred from use I could barely make out the illustrations. I wiped a sudden nosebleed and sighed. I had to hand it to the old man. He really knew how to enjoy his private time. The forbidden secret was nothing more than a collection of high-end erotica. I tucked the smut back onto the shelf and headed home. By the time I reached my courtyard, the noon sun was blazing, but someone was already waiting for me. Leaning against my gate was a man in a flamboyant white robe, the quiet follower who was always trailing behind Situ Zhiruo. He stood there clutching his blade, looking like a lonely swordsman who had reached the pinnacle of martial arts. I gave him a casual wave and asked what he wanted. His gaze turned ice cold, and his hand tightened on his hilt. This wasn't just some bodyguard, this was Yan Su, the third prince of the great Yan Empire. He looked at me like I was already a dead man. He told me that before he left the mountain, his master gave him one final task. To reach the peak of his sword path, he had to sever my connection to Zhiruo once and for all, and he intended to do it by cutting me down right where I stood. To sever my junior sister's ties to the mortal world, this man was willing to do anything. I stared at him in disbelief. Did this bastard actually kill her? "Stop your nonsense," Yan Shu roared, his voice trembling with rage. He unsheathed his 3-foot blade, the cold steel gleaming with lethal intent. He didn't want my life, at least not yet. He wanted the letter of severance my sister had given me. "Hand it over now," he hissed, "or I will make sure you never breathe again." I looked at him like he was a madman. That so-called letter was nothing but a joke to me, a pathetic scrap of paper labeling me as a backup plan. I had already tossed it into the gutter by the front door. I rolled my eyes, ignored his threats, and pushed open the heavy gates of the courtyard. That is when I saw her. Xiao He was slumped against the old phoenix tree, motionless and silent. I caught the faint metallic scent of blood in the air. In an instant, my killing intent exploded. The temperature in the courtyard plummeted, turning the air into ice. Yan Shu shivered, his entire body freezing as if he were being hunted by a prehistoric beast. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. He was paralyzed by pure terror. "You are dead," I growled. I lunged forward, grabbing Yan Shu by the throat and lifting his entire body off the ground like a rag doll. I slowly tightened my grip, inch by inch. I could hear his neck bones creaking and groaning under the pressure. His face turned a deep, bloated purple. In his final moments, he began to hallucinate, seeing his dead grandfather beckoning him toward the afterlife. But then, a voice broke the silence. "Young master, what are you doing?" I froze. Xiao He, who I thought was a cold corpse, was staring at me with wide, trembling eyes. She was alive, shivering as she watched her master commit a brutal murder. The atmosphere instantly became awkward. I turned my head, my hand still around the man's throat. "You are not dead? He did not attack you?" Xiao He swallowed hard, clutching the hem of her clothes in fear. She looked at me, then at the dying man in my hand. She realized right then that the most dangerous person in the yard was not the intruder. It was me. I snapped back to reality and immediately released my grip. This was bad. I had completely forgotten about my own nosebleed from earlier. Yansh hit the ground with a heavy thud, gasping for air as if his life depended on it. I quickly forced an awkward but polite smile and pulled him back to his feet. I even reached out to brush the dust off his clothes. It was all a misunderstanding. I told him he should have spoken up instead of acting so cold and aloof. I blamed him for making me play the villain. Yanshu was drowning in a sea of grievances. He screamed internally, asking if I was a literal devil. I hadn't given him a single chance to speak. Seeing his continued silence, I checked on him with genuine concern. I told him his face looked dangerously red and offered to perform a bloodletting therapy session on him. Yanshu recoiled in pure terror. He squeezed a few desperate words through his swollen, aching throat. He claimed he had urgent business and needed to leave immediately. He didn't even stop to pick up his sword. He scrambled out of the courtyard and sprinted toward the guest rooms like a man possessed. In his mind, he was already planning to execute the spy who handled his intel. Those idiots told him the young master of the Su family was a talentless waste who couldn't cultivate. But the truth was far worse. This boy was even more terrifying than his father. I watched him flee as if he had just seen a ghost. Meanwhile, Xiao He was hiding under a tree, clutching her broom and giggling behind her hand. She thought I looked pretty handsome while I was defending her. Her face turned bright red as she realized that warming my bed might not be such a bad idea after all. But she wasn't the only one watching. I turned back and gave the young master one final, piercing glare. My parting words were cold. I'm leaving. Make sure you sweep the yard clean. With the gates of the Su mansion closing behind me, I stepped out into the streets of Black Iron City. After picking up a few essentials, I made my way toward the edge of town, the slums. This was where the Changge family lived. In a place like Black Iron City, they were the absolute bottom of the food chain. The father had been the family's pillar until a hunting accident cost him both of his legs. Now he was useless. The mother was no better, frail, sickly, and barely clinging to life with the cheapest medicine available. The crushing weight of survival had fallen entirely on young Xiao He. That's exactly why, 10 months ago, when I offered a wager, the kid jumped at the chance. I reached their door and knocked. A little girl peeked through a hole in the wood, her eyes filled with suspicion. I stood there grinning like a madman while clutching 2 massive bags of supplies. "Who are you?" she chirped. I decided to have a little fun. "Amitabha," I said, putting on my best fake accent. "I am a humble monk traveling from the Great Tang in the east." The girl didn't miss a beat. She screamed at the top of her lungs, "Mom! Dad! Come quick! There's a bald monk at the door." My smile froze instantly. Kids really have no filter. "Hey, brat, open the door. I'm a friend of your sister's." She didn't believe me for a second, but eventually the door opened. The house was a wreck. The mother looked exhausted as she hurriedly washed the fruit I brought, her face flushed with embarrassment. In the corner, the father sat propped up on the bed. He was a rugged, dark-skinned man, but without his legs, he was a shadow of his former self. He offered me a smile, one that was both kind and incredibly bitter. To an honest man like him, my sudden appearance meant only one thing. And that's when I realized the stakes were much higher than I thought. He was likely just another rich heir obsessed with the man's daughter. But in their desperate state, the girl was nothing more than a liability to be discarded. I watched the father closely. Deep, jagged scars lined his forehead. They looked like marks from a brutal fall, or perhaps he had smashed his own head against a wall in a fit of pure agony. The sheer level of despair this man felt was unimaginable. I didn't emerge from that narrow alley until the sun began to dip below the horizon. Before leaving, I left the Changge family a small fortune. It wouldn't make them rich overnight, but it was enough to solve every problem they currently faced. Meanwhile, at the Su family courtyard, Xiao He was waiting. She had scrubbed herself clean and wrapped her clothes tightly around her body. She crouched under the eaves like a terrified kitten waiting for its fate. 4 hours had passed, and the anxiety was becoming unbearable. Why hadn't that perverted young master returned yet? Was she supposed to warm his bed or not? She muttered to herself, her heart racing. 15 minutes later, an old neighbor passed by and stopped to stare. Auntie Liu asked if she was moving in, but Xiao He simply shook her head. She was only waiting for the master's return. The old woman laughed, teasing the girl for being in love. Xiao He lowered her head, blushing deeply. In her mind, no matter how she felt, there was no escaping her fate tonight. But then, the old woman dropped a bombshell that made Xiao He's eyes widen in shock. "Don't bother waiting, girl. I just heard it from the Su family elders. Young Master Su has already left on a long journey. He won't be back for a very long time." The old woman told her to hurry home before the mansion gets locked for the night. Xiao He stood there, frozen. The man she was prepared to face was already gone. And that's when she realized her life was about to take a sudden, unpredictable turn. Xiao He wandered home like a shell of a person. She didn't even know how she made it back. She crouched at the entrance, too terrified to step inside. Huai was gone, leaving her heart shattered and filled with doubt. She was certain the Su family manager would bar her from the gates tomorrow. One sentence would end her life. "Don't bother coming back." Suddenly, a small head popped out from the door. "Sister, why are you hiding here and crying?" It was little Chung Xiaomiao. The girl patted Xiao He's shoulder and stuffed something sweet into her mouth. Xiao He wiped her tears and stared at the mischievous child. "Where did you get this candy?" Xiao Miao grinned from ear to ear. "From my future husband?" Xiao He nearly lost her mind. Her sister was only 7 years old. Had her parents really sold her off already? Xiao Miao just giggled. "No, silly. The eldest young master of the Su family came by today." Their father claimed the young master came for Xiao He. But the little girl didn't believe a word of it. He had pulled her braids, and in her mind, that meant he liked her. Xiao He's brain went completely blank. Only one thought burned in her mind. That perverted young master actually dared to show his face at her home. She gave Xiao Miao a sharp flick on the forehead and bolted inside. A loud wail erupted from the doorway. After hearing the full story from her mother, the two women collapsed into each other's arms. They wept bitterly, letting out years of suppressed pain. But as the mother stared into the pitch-black streets, she felt something new. For the first time, there was a glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, I had already left the Cheng household far behind. I was deep within the western mountain forests. I had finally found the source of the nightmare, and I wasn't leaving until it was finished. There it is, the culprit responsible for my death in my second life. A 10-foot-tall multicolored demon tiger. It glares at me, sensing a human intruder has entered its domain. I shake my head and lock eyes with the beast. My senses tell me it's only a rank 3 demon. As an immortal venerable, my strength is equivalent to rank 9. It's a total power crush, but simply obliterating it would be boring. I want real revenge. I decide to use the exact same move that cost me my life before, the legendary sliding tackle. The tiger lunges, soaring through the air. This is the moment. I lean my upper body back and execute a perfect slide right toward it. But the beast doesn't play by the rules. It force stops its momentum mid-air, slams its head against the ground, and opens its massive, bloody maw. I slide directly into its mouth. It thinks it's won. It's wrong. I instantly charge a sharp explosion bomb and detonate it directly in its face. Before the clever tiger can celebrate, its soul is sent straight to the afterlife. I check my waist. My clothes are shredded, but my skin isn't even scratched. The tiger's move was flashy, but it dealt 0 damage. I give the corpse a frustrated kick and harvest the circular demon core, tossing it into my spatial ring. 1 down, 1 to go. I turn toward the eastern forest. An old snake brother is still waiting for me. It takes nearly another hour to locate the exact cavern that has haunted my dreams for lifetimes. I stand at the entrance, staring at the field of pale blue flowers, and let out a long sigh, because I know exactly what's waiting for me inside. In my first life, I was a mere mortal until the day I died. Back then, I thought these were just pretty wildflowers. How wrong I was. These aren't flowers. They are countless rank 2 spirit herbs, moon dew chrysanthemums. Since I believe in being thrifty, I didn't just pick them. I carved out every inch of earth within 5 meters of the cave and stuffed the whole lot into my spatial ring. After stripping the entrance bare, I finally felt satisfied. I stepped into the dark, chilly cave. A foul stench wafted from the depths, making me quicken my pace. Soon I reached the very pool where I met my end in my previous life. A stone pillar rose from the water. Coiled around it was a massive snake over 20 meters long. It was a purple-patterned black belly snake. Its cold vertical pupils locked onto me, the intruder. A rank 5 beast. My brow furrowed. In the human world, the fifth realm is where you truly step onto the path of immortality. You gain the right to found your own sect. By this level, a beast's intelligence should rival a human's. Once they reach rank 6, they can even take human form and speak. But the snake's, it was staring at me like a total idiot. I wondered if there were mentally disabled demon beasts too. To test it, I released a sliver of my aura. I kept it suppressed only at the level of the Ascension realm. The snake's massive body trembled violently, but after the shaking stopped, it just sat there. It didn't attack, it didn't run, it just continued to stare. Are you kidding me? This brain-dead thing is what ate me in my first life. Looking at this moron, I was reminded of an old idiom, waiting for a rabbit to hit a tree. This snake was the tree, and I was about to be the rabbit, or so it thought. I felt like that legendary fool waiting for a rabbit to crash into a tree. But in this twisted reality, I was the stupid rabbit. Absolute madness. I gripped my blade and stepped forward. I did not care about the odds. This blood debt had to be paid today. Suddenly, the purple-patterned black-bellied snake moved. It arched its body and bit its own tail, forming a perfect, haunting circle. An Ouroboros. Before I could react, the clear water of the pool surged upward. It molded itself into a massive, transparent snake head that filled the sky. It lunged, swallowing me in a single terrifying gulp. Everything went black. Even with my power as an immortal venerable, I felt like a pathetic ant looking up at the heavens. When the light finally returned, I found myself in a desolate, unknown dimension. I stood before a massive metal door. Coiled upon it was a giant silver Ouroboros statue, its gemstone eyes glowing with a blood-red light. "Step forward," the silver snake commanded. Its voice was cold and hollow. "Who are you?" I demanded. I did not wait for an answer. I pushed my spiritual energy to the absolute limit, preparing my most devastating strike. We stood in a tense stalemate for what felt like hours. But then the silver snake lost its patience. The gemstone eyes flashed. In an instant, my power was completely drained. I was no longer a god, I was just an ordinary man. An invisible, massive hand clamped around me, forcing my palm down onto the stone platform in front of the gate. And then the silver snake opened its mouth once more. Energy level 9.3, potential 0, result failure. Before the cold voice even faded, I felt a violent shove. I stumbled forward, and when I looked up, I was back at the very beginning. I was in the same cave, facing that same idiot snake coiled in the water. I squeezed my fists. My immortal, venerable power had returned, surging through my veins once again. But something was different. A silver Ouroboros ring now gripped my finger. It looked completely drained. Its once crimson eyes were now dark and lifeless. I frowned and forced a trace of spiritual chi into the metal. Instantly, fragments of information exploded in my mind. Mount Tengyun, the Foggy Dao tablet, potential enhancement, the key. Escape, my mind flashed back to that massive metal door. Was this ring the key to opening it? And if so, what exactly was I supposed to be escaping from? I tried to yank the ring off, but it had fused with my body. It wasn't going anywhere. I sat by the pool, trying to make sense of the madness. My instincts from my first life were right. This cave was a gold mine of opportunity. That brain-dead, purple-patterned, black-bellied snake was only the first hurdle. In my past life, I was a mere mortal. Walking in here was a death sentence. But even now, with the strength of an immortal venerable, I still failed the test. This place was more dangerous than I thought. According to the ring, Mount Tengyun can boost my potential, and it is located near the capital of the Great Yan Kingdom. Once I finish my enlightenment there, I will head straight for the moon masking sect. The real hunt was finally about to begin. Luo City, a fortress of iron and blood. It stands as the ultimate shield against the monster tides pouring from the star-hidden mountains. 15 miles deep into the desolate wilderness, 5 young elites huddle around a roaring campfire. The crackle of burning wood is the only sound until Luo Yuanhe breaks the silence. As the son of the city lord, he isn't used to seeing his friend in such a state. "Brother Yan, you only stayed in Black Iron City for half a day," Luo Yuanhe says, eyeing his companion. "Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? And more importantly, where is your sword?" The man staring blankly into the flames is Yan Shu, the third prince of the great Yan dynasty. His voice trembles with a bitterness he can't hide. "My sword is gone." Luo Yuanhe is stunned. This wasn't just any weapon. It was a grade 4 spirit artifact, a royal gift from the emperor himself to mark the prince's coming of age, and he lost it in a single afternoon. "I was incompetent," Yan Shu mutters, burying his face in his hands. His voice is shaking now. Across the fire, Situ Zhiruo watches him with growing suspicion. Something happened yesterday at noon. Yan Shu had vanished, and when he finally returned, he was a different man. He didn't explain. He only demanded they flee the area immediately. As the tension rises, Luo Yuanhe glances at the two girls in the group, hoping they can break the ice, but they are lost in their own worlds. His sister, Luo Xin, is mesmerized. To her, even the prince's soul-crushing depression looks like a poetic, brooding charm. She's already decided he's the perfect match. Then there is Cao Yi, daughter of the merchant tycoon Cao Yang. She grew up in the world of high-stakes trade and hidden agendas. Unlike the others, she doesn't see a brooding prince. She sees a man terrified of a secret he's too afraid to tell. The fire pops, sending sparks into the dark night. Something changed in Black Iron City, and whatever it was, it had turned a prince of the empire into a broken man. Instead of rushing to Yan Shu, she played it cool. She distributed the roasted beef to the group, personally handing the final portion to Situ Zhiruo. She called out with a smile, asking her sister to eat. The two girls hit it off instantly, finding common ground as they shared the meal. Watching them, Luo Yuanhe glanced at his own sister, who was busy staring at Yan Shu's handsome face as if it were the main course. He let out a long, heavy sigh. He used to think his sister was cute, but compared to Situ Zhiruo, she was a total disaster. Shaking his head, he leaned toward Yan Shu. He asked if the famous Heavenly Cold Palace possessed any secret methods for taming beasts. Yan Shu gave a short, muffled yes. Luo Yuanhe lowered his voice even further, whispering directly into Yan Shu's ear. He told him to come to his tent at 5 in the morning. He promised to hand him a massive opportunity, a secret gift. Yan Shu's eyes widened in confusion. He asked what kind of opportunity could possibly be so private. Luo Yuanhe just grinned, saying he had some good things in his tent that couldn't be shown out here. He told Yan Shu he'd understand once he arrived. Suddenly, Yan Shu felt a sharp chill in a very private place. He instinctively recoiled, sliding away as if he were facing a predator. He didn't stay quiet either. He demanded to know why it was a secret. He asked if Luo Yuanhe considered Lady Cao Yi an outsider, or if he was afraid Situ Zhiruo would steal his precious prize. Luo Yuanhe stood there, jaw dropped, completely stunned by the outburst. He had no idea Yan Shu had completely misinterpreted his intentions. To him, Yan Shu's social intelligence seemed even lower than his sister's. He had tried to play it cool, offering a secret lead as a personal favor, but Yan Shu had just blown his cover in front of everyone. Since the secret was out, Luo Yuanhe decided to stop playing games. He cleared his throat and straightened his posture. He revealed that the news came directly from his father that very morning, and what he said next would change everything. In the heat of the bloodiest battle, the experts from the Liu Yun faction saw their opening. They didn't hit the front lines. Instead, they slipped into the Chimu Demon King's inner sanctum. It was a total massacre. Every concubine and every heir was slaughtered where they stood. But fate is a fickle thing. One survivor remained, the youngest Wutun cub. The greedy little brat had only escaped the blade because he was out wandering for food when the killers arrived. Luo Yuanhe watched as Situ Zhiruo and the others reeled from the news. He smirked, ready to drop a massive bombshell. He looked Yan Shu dead in the eye and asked, "Want to guess where that little survivor is hiding right now?" Yan Shu's breath hitched. His eyes went wide as the pieces fell into place. "You don't mean..." Luo Yuanhe just laughed at the desperation in his eyes. It's exactly what you're thinking, Brother Yan. Now tell me, is an opportunity like this big enough for you? Yan Shu was stunned, but he was still a prince of the royal bloodline. He composed himself and bowed deeply to Luo Yuanhe. The Yan family will never forget this debt to the Luo clan. I will remember this favor forever. He paused, his gaze burning with intensity. But tell me, where is that cub hiding now? Brother Luo, lead the way. With a confident laugh, Luo Yuanhe stands up and points into the darkness. Cao Yi watches him closely, his eyes flickering with realization. The city lord hadn't just found the beast cub, he had trapped it in a secret location, waiting for Yan Shu to arrive and claim the prize. This midnight camping trip was no accident. It was a flawless master plan. Before today, the Cao family could still compete with the Luo family through sheer wealth. But after this, with the backing of the great Yan royal family, the Luo family's status would be untouchable. Luo Yuanhe wasn't just being a good host, he was showing off his power. The group extinguished their campfire and vanished into the pitch-black forest. After a few minutes of high-speed movement, they reached the mouth of a hidden valley. Luo Yuanhe turned to speak to Yan Shu, but his words died in his throat. A strange, pungent scent hit his nostrils. His face turned pale. The protective array he had painstakingly placed at the entrance was shattered. He sprinted into the narrow valley, his heart pounding in his chest. In the darkness, the faint glow of a small fire flickered. Beside the flames sat a dark hooded figure, and on the roasting spit, a small beast, gutted and ready to be eaten. Luo Yuanhe began to shake. All the strength left his body, and he collapsed onto the dirt. He had only one thought left. It was all over. Behind him, Yan Shu realized exactly what was happening. He let out a primal, earth-shaking roar. "Stop! Get away from my spirit beast." He charged toward the fire with the force of a 1,000-ton hammer, and that's when everything went south. A shadow in white lunges from the darkness, aiming straight for the campfire with the force of an army. But before he can even land, a sharp, bone-chilling crack echoes through the valley. Yan Shu, still draped in his elegant white robes, spins 360 degrees in mid-air before face-planting into the dirt. Huai jumps back, cursing under his breath. He grabs a torch and shines the flickering light on the pathetic pile of white fabric. A cold smirk spreads across his face. "Well, if it isn't Brother Yan, we haven't seen each other for a single day, and you've already upgraded to such a unique look." 15 minutes later, the atmosphere around the campfire is suffocating. Cao Yi and the others sit in stunned silence, staring at Yan Shu. One side of his face is now swollen like a prize hog, yet he doesn't dare utter a single complaint. Huai leans forward, a mocking glint in his eyes. "We really are fated, Brother Yan. I wanted to treat you to a meal earlier to apologize, but you ran off so fast I couldn't catch you. Since you're here, why not have a taste of my cooking?" Yan Shu's hands tremble as he reaches for a roasted pig's trotter. He bites down, feeling the bitter sting of humiliation. The fall from heaven to hell has never felt so sudden. Nearby, Luo Yuanhe gulps hard. His father's master plan has been completely hijacked. But he isn't a fool. Yan Shu is a powerful expert in the condensation realm, yet he was swatted away like a common fly. He realizes the man standing before him must be at least a mid-level third-tier expert. Against that kind of overwhelming power, a second-tier cultivator like himself is nothing but an ant. He sits perfectly still, acting like a disciplined child. "Brother Yan, who is this gentleman?" Before Yan Shu can find his voice, Situ Zhiruo speaks up. This is the eldest son of Black Iron City's Su family. Huai, the name hits the group like a lightning bolt. Luo Xing, completely oblivious to the danger, jumps to her feet. She points a finger directly at Huai's face. You're that useless failure, Huai, the one who was dumped and had his engagement cancelled?" Luo Yuanhe covers his face in pure horror, finally realizing just how brainless his sister truly is. He watches Huai's expression turn cold, and he realizes one thing: they might not live to see the morning. "Put your hand down, Luo Xing," Luo Yuanhe barks. The girl flinches, quickly pulling her hand back in fear. Luo Yuanhe turns to me with a forced apologetic smile. My apologies, Brother Su. My father is swamped with politics, so my sister's upbringing was neglected. I just grin. Don't sweat it, your sister is actually right. I lean back, my voice dripping with sarcasm. I really am just a loser who recently had his engagement canceled. In fact, the person who dumped me is sitting right next to you. Luo Yuan instantly shuts his mouth. He is speechless. How is he supposed to respond to that? Should he call Situ Zhiruo blind for dumping me? That would be social suicide. But Situ Zhiruo isn't offended at all. Right now, her mind is racing with two thoughts. First, how did Su Huai, the famous trash of Black Iron City, suddenly become as strong as her senior brother? Second, why is he here in Luo City? She decides he must be stalking her because he can't let her go. She actually believes he followed her trail because he is hopelessly in love. The more she thinks about it, the more certain she becomes. To her, this is a display of pure, undying devotion. She finally speaks up. Suai, now that you have stepped onto the path of cultivation, why not join the Heavenly Frost Palace with me? She looks at me with pity. My master values talent. Once he sees your potential, he will surely take you in. I blink in disbelief. Talent? I don't have a single drop of talent. Besides, I have zero interest in becoming some sect's disposable tool. I do plan on joining a sect, I tell her. But my goal is the moon-masking immortal sect in Chenyu Valley. Situ Zhiruo freezes in confusion. Why would you go all the way there? I raise an eyebrow and give her a cold smirk. To pick up girls, obviously. I let the words sink in. The moon-masking sect has the most beautiful female cultivators in the world, and I heard every single one of them is a legendary beauty. And just like that, her entire worldview shattered. Su Huai casually mentioned his new goal, finding a beautiful fairy to take home as his wife. Situ Zhiruo immediately went silent. Sure, she was the one who broke off their engagement, but he was a useless loser back then. Now that he could finally cultivate, she had reached out only for him to brush her off for other women. She couldn't believe how fast men could change. To her, he was nothing but a total scumbag. Watching the drama unfold, Xiao He saw the situation for exactly what it was. She stepped forward with a polite smile. Hello, Mr. Su, my name is Xiao He. Su Huai turned to look at her. She had been so quiet earlier that he assumed she was the cold, distant type. He never expected her to strike up a conversation. Xiao He continued, asking about his plans. Since the great sect recruitment was still a long way off, she wondered what he would do until the capital festival began. Su Huai shot a quick glance at Situ Zhiruo. He didn't want her thinking he was following her around, so he told the truth. He was heading to Tengyun Mountain to see the Tao Enlightenment tablet. Cao Yi's eyes sparked with interest. It turned out their paths were almost identical. She was heading to the mountain to visit a family elder and test her own hidden talent. Even better, her family owned businesses all along the route. She offered to handle all the travel logistics, making the journey effortless. Su Huai laughed, accepting the offer. Then I'll be in your debt. Cao Yi beamed, calling it an honor to travel with him. But Su Huai shook his head at the formality. Don't call me mister, just call me Su Huai. They were ready to move out, but the road to the tablet was never as simple as it seemed, and that's when the real trouble began. Luo Yuanhe watched from the sidelines as Cao Yi pulled off a masterclass in social manipulation. Within minutes, she had already charmed her way into Su Huai's inner circle. The Cao family had just secured a priceless connection with a rising star, and Luo Yuanhe was feeling the pressure. He glanced at his own sister, who was desperately trying to clean Yanshu's swollen face with a handkerchief. He felt like coughing up blood. If his sister could actually land a man like Yanshu, the Luo family might have produced a princess. But it was painfully obvious that Yanshu wanted nothing to do with her. Realizing his sister was a lost cause, Luo Yuanhe decided to step in himself. But before he could make his move, Situ Zhiruo cut him off. Luo Yuanhe grit his teeth in frustration. He wondered how she could be so incredibly rude. In his mind, it was no wonder Su Huai had discarded her like trash. But Situ Zhiruo didn't care about Luo Yuanhe. Her eyes were locked onto Su Huai. She was the one who had demanded the divorce, yet seeing Su Huai laughing and talking with Cao Yi made her blood boil. Su Huai looked up, his voice calm and indifferent. "Is there something you need?" Situ Zhiruo clenched her jaw until it hurt. "Do you have any idea what kind of monster you're roasting on that spit?" Su Huai paused, looking at the meat. "It's just a black pig, isn't it?" Situ Zhiruo instinctively nodded, but then she snapped back to her senses. She stood up and pointed a trembling finger at the half-eaten carcass over the fire. "That is the last living descendant of the Bajie Demon King. You've just invited a literal nightmare upon yourself. Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in?" Su Huai didn't even blink. He took another bite, his expression completely relaxed. "No wonder it tastes so good," he replied. Situ Zhiruo nearly choked. She was speechless, her face turning red with pure, unadulterated rage. She had expected him to tremble in fear, but instead he treated an ancient bloodline like a midnight snack. And that was when she realized Su Huai wasn't just bold, he was dangerous. "I sensed the faint aura of a demon king on that little black pig from the very first glance. But I didn't care. If that demon king actually comes looking for revenge, he'll have only one option. He'll have to let me eat his entire body until I burst." Situ Zhiruo was stunned into silence, her entire body trembling with disbelief. She couldn't fathom how Su Huai could be this indifferent. They were talking about a literal demon king, after all. After finishing his meal, Su Huai glanced at the group. "Which one of you can give me directions?" Luo Yuanhe finally found a chance to speak, looking completely puzzled. "Directions? Directions to where?" Su Huai replied as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "To Luocheng, obviously." Luo Yuanhe opened his mouth to help, but a sudden voice cut him off. "I'll go with you, Su Huai." Cao Yi stood up, wiping grease from his lips with a satisfied look. He had eaten his fill and was ready to move. "I'm feeling a bit tired myself," Cao Yi said, glancing at the others. "Brother Luo, Xing'er, enjoy your night with young Master Yan and Miss Situ. I'll take Su Huai back to Luocheng to get some rest." Yan Shu gave a slight nod as Cao Yi turned to walk away. Su Huai might have ruined their original plans for a lucky encounter, but the Luo family's debt was already paid. With the great Yan dynasty's support, the Luo family's position was now untouchable. The Cao family knew they had no hope of seizing the city lord position anymore. Instead of fighting a losing battle, Cao Yi decided on a new strategy. He needed to find a way to get as close to Su Huai as possible. He had read enough novels to know exactly how this story goes. A mysterious youth from a remote mountain town, labeled as trash, only to rise suddenly after a broken engagement. It was the classic path to becoming a great emperor. Thick clouds swallowed the moonlight, leaving the forest in total darkness. Cao Yi held a silver stone aloft, its faint glow barely cutting through the gloom, but suddenly I stopped. Cao Yi looked back, confused. "What is it?" "Look up," I whispered. "Someone is blocking our way." Cao Yi raised the silver stone. There, perched silently on a massive tree branch, stood an old man in a stark white robe. In the pitch-black jungle, he looked like a ghost. The old man narrowed his eyes. "Junior of the Su family, you have gone too far." I let out a long sigh. "And who exactly are you?" "I am Qin Shan, the Lord of Heavenly Cold," he declared. He explained that he was here because of Yan Shu, a top disciple who was traveling for the first time in over 10 years. The sect master didn't trust the rookie's safety, so he sent Qin Shan to watch over him from the shadows. I couldn't help but mock him. Unbelievable. Imagine needing a bodyguard just to leave the house. Qin Shan didn't get angry. Instead, he admitted he hadn't been very effective. Before reaching Black Iron City, he was forced to stay back. Apparently, the city had a strict rule. No cultivator above the 4th rank was allowed to enter. I didn't panic. Instead, I grinned and kept the old man talking. If Black Iron City really had those rules, it didn't make sense. My deadbeat father was only at the 4th rank. If a powerhouse like Qin Shan was kept out, it meant one thing. Was there a hidden master guarding the Su family from the shadows? And if so, what were they hiding? Qin Shan's lips curled into a cold, faint smirk. He asks me how I think Black Iron City remains standing. It sits deep within the Hidden Star Mountains, surrounded by level 3 and 4 beasts. I simply tilt my head. I ask him what he is trying to prove. He tells me he could not enter the city himself, but he saw Yanshu leave it, broken, soul-shattered, and defeated. He says he was frustrated by the mystery until he saw me humiliating the man just now. Suddenly, Qin Shan's gaze turns sharp. He steps into the void and vanishes. In the blink of an eye, he appears behind me like a ghost. A skeletal, withered hand clamps down hard on my shoulder. A faint, bitter medicinal scent drifts from beneath his white robes. Up close, his face is a vision from hell. Blood-red runes are etched across every inch of his skin. His sunken eyes glow with a haunting, ghostly green light. A dark fungus grows from the corner of his eye like a parasite. Xiao He screams in terror and collapses to the ground, but I only frown. Looking at him, I realize the truth. He is a medicine human. I tell him the heavenly cold palace has deep problems, and that man he mentioned, Fengzhu, he is definitely not the saint he claims to be. Qin Shan chuckles, surprised by my insight, but his expression shifts in an instant. He suddenly feels my hand grip his wrist. There is a loud, sickening crack. His arm snaps like a dry twig. Before he can even process the pain, my fist fills his entire vision. A massive blow lands with a deafening boom. And that is when he realized he had picked the wrong target. Her head was inches from the ground when she finally reacted. Green spiritual energy erupted from her body, forming a grotesque, massive flower. Its petals were covered in razor-sharp thorns, looking like rows of jagged teeth hungry for my skull. It was a bone-eating flower. I reached out, ready to tear the beast apart with my bare hands. But suddenly the silver Ouroboros ring on my finger pulsed with a faint crimson light. An icy chill surged through my skin as the ring transformed into a living silver snake. It slithered off my finger and lunged straight into the heart of the flower. The basin-sized monster shriveled instantly, twisting and struggling in mid-air. Then it went dead still. It collapsed onto the old man's chest, its petals trembling like a wounded animal. I stood there in shock, unable to process the scene. Before I could even blink, the silver snake crawled out of the bud and returned to my hand, turning back into a ring. This time, the red glow in its eyes was even more intense. I instinctively reached out to touch it. That's when the snake looked at me, uncoiled its tail, and sank its fangs into my flesh. Before I could even curse, a wave of warm energy flooded my entire body. A cold, arrogant voice echoed in my mind. Combat power 9.3, potential rating 2, and don't you dare touch me so casually. The voice faded and the snake became a lifeless piece of jewelry once again. I closed my eyes to feel the change, and that's when I made a shocking discovery about my potential. 2 points. My stats actually increased by 2 points. Inside my empty dantian, a colorless spirit root finally manifested. It was tiny, but it was real. I never expected improving my talent in this life would be this easy. The future was finally looking bright. I slowly opened my eyes and looked at the old man. He lay motionless on the ground, his breath long gone. Without its soil, the ancient corpse flower wouldn't last long either. It would wither away in 30 minutes at most. I reached into my spatial ring, pulled out a small shovel, and tossed it to Xiao He. I told him to do me a favor and bury the old man. We would just say he died of a sudden heart attack while walking down the road. Meanwhile, in a cramped attic in the mortal realm, books covered every inch of the walls. Knowledge was packed into every corner. In the center of the room sat a soft bed. A girl lay there clutching a book, though dark circles had begun to form around her tired eyes. Xiao He had been in a complete daze all night. He rarely left his house. He wasn't a man of violence. He preferred the quiet company of his library. But last night, everything changed. He had blindly followed a man he'd just met into the dark woods to dig a hole. He spent nearly an hour sweating over that grave. Shovelful by shovelful, he had built that burial mound with his own 2 hands. He didn't know why, but thinking back on it gave him a strange, dark thrill. A rush of adrenaline he had never felt before. Xiao He took a deep breath and slowly closed his book. His quiet life was officially over. He had already discovered the truth from an old record. He knew exactly what a medicinal human was, and he knew where that victim came from, the heavenly cold palace. To the rest of the world, it was a legendary holy land of cultivation. To those in the know, it was something far more sinister. Pursing his lips, he hesitated. But after a moment, he forced himself to shake off his exhaustion and headed downstairs. There sat Huai, delicately tending to a small white flower gathered from the woods the night before. Hearing him approach, I looked up with a calm smile. "Do you need something?" Xiao He lowered his head, his voice barely a whisper. "It's about the medicinal human from last night. You know the heavenly cold palace is corrupt. So why haven't you warned the other sects? You're letting them maintain their mask of virtue while they recruit more victims. You didn't even warn Yanshu or Situ Zhiruo. You must have some kind of master plan, right?" My gaze remained as still as a frozen lake. "So that's what's on your mind," I said calmly. "But you're wrong. I don't have a plan at all." Xiao He froze. Confusion and shock washed over his face. I stared directly into his eyes, pinning him with my gaze. "Do you think I'm heartless?" He scrambled to explain, insisting he wasn't questioning me, but I simply shook my head. "Don't deny it. You're a normal person, so it's only natural for you to see me as cold-blooded. After all, I know that palace is nothing but a slaughterhouse. Yet, I sit back and watch as countless young men and women, kids just like Situ Zhiruo, treat that place like a sanctuary. I watch them rush toward their deaths, fueled by dreams of a future that doesn't exist. But, Xiao He, most people are powerless. Without status or a name to back you up, your words are worthless. No one believes a nobody." Xiao He lowered his head, his brow furrowing as he processed my words. I took a deep breath and continued. I told him about a friend who had stumbled upon the dark secrets of the Frozen Frost Palace. This friend felt exactly like Xiao He, full of justice and hot-blooded hope. He rushed to the capital of the Great Yan Empire to expose the truth, but the world didn't want a hero. They looked at him with disgust. They warned him to shut his mouth and stop spreading lies, or they would personally break his legs. Then the nightmare began. A wave of brutal bandits appeared out of nowhere, raiding villages across the region. By total coincidence, they targeted the exact location where the secret had been discovered. My friend was captured. He was dragged into a hidden alchemy chamber filled with the remains of the fallen. There, he was brutally refined into a single medicinal pill. But now I have returned through rebirth. I shared this past as a story to the idealistic Xiao He, and his expression turned grim. He knew it wasn't just a fairy tale. He could tell every word was the cold, hard truth. Xiao He let out a long, heavy sigh and rolled his eyes, finally feeling the weight of reality. "Forget it," he muttered. He knew that in this world, some secrets are better left buried. "Want to go for a stroll?" Xiao He asked. Whenever she is in a bad mood, she has one solution: spend money. I spread my hands helplessly. I was dead broke, but she just waved it off. Today was on her, or rather, it was all going on her father's tab. We shopped until the sun was high in the sky. After a sleepless night, Xiao He finally wore herself out. As the money vanished, so did her depression. The shopping spree was finally over. Back at the house, she headed to the third-floor attic with a few old books she found. I heard the faint sound of running water from above and sighed. I curled up on the sofa and pulled out the gift the old man gave me. It was a book titled Review of Diverse Demon Girls. I began my deep research into the anatomy of different races. Time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had gone by. Xiao He knocked on my door and told me it was time to move out. But Xiao He has a near fanatical obsession with books. She had noticed me constantly wiping blood from my nose while reading that specific book. She was dying of curiosity. She asked why my nose kept bleeding. I looked her in the eye and told her this was a cursed ancient tome. I claimed the knowledge inside was forbidden, and every glance would trigger a curse. The nosebleed was just the first side effect. I told her she could borrow it, but only if a parent was there to protect her from the curse's power. And she actually fell for it. She brought her father along to guard her. She piously opened the fine leather-bound cover. And then the curse took effect immediately. Let's just say a father's love truly knows no bounds. His father selflessly bore the curse in his place. The 50-year-old man tilted his head back, blood streaming from his nose as he endured the sights within that book. Despite his son's protests that the book belonged to a friend, his father confiscated it immediately, locking himself away with it for an entire night. Xiao He had no idea what happened behind those closed doors. He only knew that by the next afternoon, his father was spending a fortune in Luocheng to hire a team of elite illustrators. The journey from Luocheng to Mount Tengyun is brutal. For a normal person, traveling on foot would take at least 6 months. To save time, they chose to travel by air, mounting a massive flying beast. 2 days blurred past. As they descended from the back of the rank two-eagle beast, the protagonist looked up at the Immortal Mountain. He had stood here countless times in his past life. A flicker of nostalgia crossed his eyes, gone as quickly as it appeared. For those born with mediocre talent who refuse to rot at the bottom of society, Mount Tengyun is the ultimate sanctuary. Most major powers hoard their soul-strengthening resources, hiding them away from the world. But Mount Tengyun is different. They opened the Tao Enlightenment Tablet to everyone. As long as you have a pulse, you are welcome to sit and seek the truth. At the foot of the mountain, the protagonist stepped toward the testing stone. He placed his hand on the cold surface, and 2 white lines flickered to life. A grade 2 lower spiritual root. In a place like this, that's as unremarkable as a grain of sand. He was just another face in a crowd of thousands, a mediocre soul unwilling to accept a mundane life. He turned back to see Xiao He, who was staring at the result in absolute shock. The protagonist simply shrugged, a small smirk playing on his lips. "What, disappointed?" Xiao He stammered, trying to find his voice. He claimed he wasn't, but the look in his eyes said something completely different, and that was when the real test began. Curiosity piqued, Xiao He stepped up to the testing platform. As the previous white markings faded, he pressed his palm onto the cold stone. Immediately, 4 ripples of deep blue water erupted across the surface. Grade 4, lower rank. A water attribute spiritual root. In a world where talent is everything, a grade 4 root makes you 1 in 1,000. The surrounding cultivators watched, their eyes burning with a mix of envy and pure jealousy. I looked at him and smirked. Not bad. Surpassing your father is now a guaranteed certainty. Xiao He let out a confident smile. After all the resources his father poured into him, anything less would have been pathetic. He looked toward the peak and asked if we were really going to climb. My answer was simple. Why else would we be here? Tengyun Mountain, a brutal ascent of 99,000 steps. From the base, the summit is lost in a sea of clouds, where massive eagles circle the heavens. Legends say reaching the top triggers a complete physical rebirth. It turns a mere mortal into a god-tier genius capable of crushing an entire era single-handedly. But it is nearly impossible. In 1,000 years, the highest anyone has climbed is 94,000 steps. That record belongs to a top-tier successor and my greatest enemy, Li Sidao, the gravekeeper of the Sword Tomb, the very same woman who butchered me with 2 ice blades in my previous life. We had just started our climb when a young boy in mountain robes rushed toward us. He carried a bundle of scrolls and pulled out a fresh sheet of yellow paper. He flashed a smile and asked if we wanted to buy a guide to the mountain. But in a place this dangerous, a piece of paper is rarely enough to keep you alive. With this manual, climbing the mountain is twice as easy. It marks every supply cache and rest stop, all for the price of a single spirit stone. Quite a bargain, right? I recognize this little brat immediately. He is the youngest disciple of the Tengyun Mountain Lord, a natural genius who absolutely hates cultivation. Instead, he steals sacred talisman paper to doodle fake maps. He spends his days at the mountain base, scamming every poor soul he can find. I nod with a smirk. But before I can reach for my spatial ring, Xiao He moves first. She drops 2 spirit stones into the boy's hand. "I told you," she says casually. "Everything on this trip is on me." I can only sigh. It must be nice being a filthy rich woman. The kid runs off to find his next victim, grinning from ear to ear. Xiao He finally takes a close look at her new manuals. At first, they look professional. They even show supposedly easier climbing routes. But then her smile freezes, she compares the two books and realizes the maps are completely different. She has been played. I burst out laughing at the sight. Xiao He grinds her teeth in fury. You knew, she snaps. You knew these were fakes the whole time. I nod, my laughter growing even louder. Of course I knew. I am not an idiot like you. Xiao He is fuming now. Then why didn't you stop me? You acted like you were going to buy them yourself. I shrug and start the ascent. It was only 2 spirit stones, consider it an entrance fee. I keep my hands in my sleeves as I climb. If my memory serves me right, 5 years from now, this sacred mountain will change forever. And that is when the real nightmare begins. In my past life, the Star Burial Mountains became a graveyard. Without warning, a demon venerable unleashed a massive beast tide. In just 12 hours, the Great Yan Kingdom was wiped off the map. The master of Cloud-Soaring Mountain led his disciples into the fray to save the survivors. Not a single person returned, not even the master himself. The once joyful sect became a silent tomb of spirit tablets and monuments. The master's favorite disciple changed forever that day. He stopped his childish games and spent every day sweeping those cold stone steps. Fast forward to the present. We are standing at step 25,000. Despite having a mere grade 2 spirit root, I am moving with total ease. Meanwhile, Xiao He is gasping for air. He has a grade 4 root, but every step feels like a mountain on his back. I hand him a clean towel. He collapses on the steps, his face pale and defeated. He tells me to go ahead and leave him behind to train. I don't waste a second. I accelerate, completely ignoring the crushing pressure of the mountain. By step 60,000, I run into a massive, muscular man. He stares at me, his eyes wide with shock. He asks if the human race has produced another grade 9 genius. Little does he know, this is only the beginning. Which sex successor are you? I stared the hulking man down, hands tucked casually into my sleeves. Shouldn't you introduce yourself before asking a question? The giant froze for a second, then let out a booming laugh, cupping his fists in a sign of respect. I am Liu Konglan, the commander of Great Barren City at the Demon Cave. He looked me over, his eyes flashing with intrigue. Most men lower their eyes in my presence, but you have the guts to stare me down and talk back. I like your style, kid. If you ever need a real place to train, come find me. I'll show you how to truly slay demons. Now that I knew his identity, I pulled my hands from my sleeves and offered a formal bow. Huai, from Black Iron City. The man's entire body stiffened, his eyes widened in pure shock. Changge, what is he to you? I was taken aback. You know my grandfather? In that instant, his expression shifted like a kaleidoscope. Respect, terror, pity, and finally a look of grim realization. My brow twitched. Something was very wrong, and this man knew exactly what it was. But the giant quickly masked his emotions, returning to his foolish act and refusing to say another word. I wasn't about to let it go. I stepped forward, intending to force the truth out of him. Liu Konglan didn't even flinch. To him, I was just some talented brat. He believed that no matter how gifted I was, there was no way I could challenge a battle-hardened, Tier 6 powerhouse. He decided it was time to teach me a lesson in respecting my elders. The moment I reached him, his spiritual energy surged. He lunged, aiming to end the confrontation, instantly crack in a flash. The giant was pinned face first against the dirt. His bearded face was crushed into the ground, his massive muscles completely paralyzed by my grip. He couldn't move a single inch. I leaned down, my voice cold as ice. A mere Tier 6 Earth Immortal, and you actually thought you could lay a hand on me? That's when he realized he had made a fatal mistake. Who gave you the guts to keep secrets? Start talking. How do you know my grandfather? The massive brute's eyes widened in terror. He couldn't hold out any longer and spilled everything. It turns out Changge wasn't just some old man. He was once the supreme commander of the abandoned Ghost Abyss. He spent years in the trenches, slaughtering the ghost tribe until a devastating ambush forced him into a bloody retirement. He survived, but the scars remained. Every year, he requires intensive treatment to purge the lingering ghost energy from his system. It all clicked. I remembered that alchemist I saw back in the courtyard. He was clearly there to heal the old man, but his skills were utterly pathetic. Judging by the brute's tone, my grandfather is definitely stronger than rank 6, but he's likely capped at the peak of rank 8. After all, his name isn't on the immortal venerable list. There's no way he's some legendary hidden immortal emperor. Bored with the revelation, I finally let go of Liu Konglan. The man scrambled to his feet, staring at me as if he had seen a ghost. "What kind of power is this?" he gasped. I couldn't even move. "Just what on earth did they feed you growing up?" I didn't bother answering. I had bigger problems to worry about. I reached out, feeling the crushing weight of the atmosphere. Even with my rank 9 cultivation, I had to be careful. My newly formed spiritual root was still far too fragile. One wrong move, and the pressure would tear me apart. We were standing on the 60,000th step. From here on out, the gravity doesn't just increase. It multiplies tenfold with every single stride. We weren't at the peak yet, but we were close enough to touch the base of the Enlightenment stele. I tapped the ring on my finger. It shimmered, shifting and twisting until it transformed back into that small silver snake. It raised its head, its tongue flickering with anticipation. It hissed a single command: "Get a little closer." And that's when I realized the real trial was only just beginning. I lay my hand on the Enlightenment stone. The dark brown rock is ice cold against my palm. Suddenly, the tiny snake on my finger flashes its crimson eyes. It sinks its fangs into the stone, leaving 2 small punctures. A massive, hidden power awakens. It surges from the depths of the monument, rushing toward me like a tidal wave. My face turns white, my legs shake. I almost bolt in terror. A mocking voice echoes in my mind: "Look at you, pathetic coward." The silver snake opens its mouth and blocks the holes. It absorbs 99% of the raw energy. Only a tiny sliver remains. It is just enough for my fragile spirit root to handle. As the energy flows in, my body shudders. My soul feels like it is soaring through the clouds. Suddenly, ancient memories flood my sea of consciousness. I see a lonely island, a quiet pavilion. 3 men and 1 woman are drinking and laughing. They make a pact. Every 5 years, they will meet and fight for immortality together. 5 years pass. Everyone returns. 2 of them have married, receiving both jokes and blessings from their friends. But by the second meeting, only 3 remain. The path of immortality is a war against heaven. Falling in battle is common, and grief is the only reward. 5 more years pass. A powerful demon attacks the city where the couple lives. Pitch-black calamity fires swallow the sky. In an instant, the weak are reduced to ash. Humans are nothing more than ants in a furnace, and that's when the true nightmare began. Amidst the absolute chaos, a monstrous roar shatters the sky. 2 massive ram horns pierce the heavens, heralding a nightmare. As the city's strongest cultivators, a legendary couple had no choice. To cover the evacuation of the weak, they stood their ground alongside a few remaining elites. Their enemy, a godlike creature that defied all logic. Fast forward 20 years. Heavy snow falls over a lonely pavilion in the center of the lake. 4 wine cups are set on the table, but only 1 man sits among them. The green youth of the past is gone. 2 decades of blood and hardship have etched deep lines into his face. Now covered in rough stubble, drunk and weary, he stares at the frozen lake and laughs. He talks to the empty seats, narrating the highlights of the past 5 years to his dead friends. He tells them about a girl he fell for, Immortal. She has a warm, simple home and a smile that knows no sorrow. But he refuses to ruin that peace. A cultivator has power and respect, sure, but they also carry a death sentence. He knows he could die at any moment, maybe in another 5 years, maybe tomorrow. When morning arrives, the pavilion is empty. The laughter of the night feels like a fading dream. Only a single line of text remains carved into the small wooden table. It reads, "You lie buried deep beneath the earth, your bones turning to dust. I remain in the world of the living, my hair turned white with grief." Just as expected, the last man didn't wait for another 5 years. The scene shifts to a battlefield of magnificent proportions. He steps into the void, treading on thin air while clutching a pitch-black stone monument. Fire and lightning surge around his body like living dragons. Opposite him, the ram-horned beast towers above the clouds. The same monster that slaughtered the couple 10 years ago has evolved. In a single decade, it has ascended to the level of a true god. And that's when everything changed. Millions of citizens are trapped within the city walls. Every exit is blocked by a literal tide of monsters. Despair is spreading like a plague. One by one, the city's cultivators take to the skies. They know the truth. Against these beasts, there is no surrender, there is no mercy. You either escape or you die. In this world, a warrior dying behind the common folk is a disgrace. But dying to protect them, that is the ultimate honor. The man dragging the massive stone tablet is a storm incarnate. His hair is wild, and arcs of lightning erupt from his body, leaving scorched craters and jagged wounds on the goat-horned monster. His strikes are powerful enough to level mountains and part the seas. But against this beast, it barely flinches. A single roar is the only response he gets. The battle drags on for hours. Cultivators are throwing away their lives, their eyes blood red as they unleash every drop of their power. When their energy runs dry, they charge into the thickest part of the monster horde, detonating their own bodies like lethal fireworks. Even the civilians are picking up rusty tools and scrap metal, prepared to take at least one demon down with them. This suicidal resistance buys them some time, but their strength is fading fast. The man with the stone tablet gasps for air, his lungs burning. He looks back toward a small flower shop in the city, searching for the girl he secretly loves. He doesn't see her. But at this point, it doesn't matter. He squeezes out the very last spark of his life force. A blade of light forms in his hand, but he doesn't aim it at the monster's eyes. Instead, he points it directly at his own forehead. Right there, a purple lightning crystal begins to pulse with a blinding, terrifying radiance. And that's when he prepared to pay the ultimate price. His body hurls himself directly into the jaws of that colossal demon. A deafening explosion rocks the world as light flares and life fades into nothingness. The massive stone monolith he dragged shatters, its fragments plummeting into the dark abyss and the endless sky. Suddenly, I snap my eyes open. I find myself staring at the dark brown cliffs of Mount Tengyun. The legendary mist path tablet standing before me is no mere relic. It is a piece of the very stone from my vision. Even as a broken fragment, it radiates the ancient power of that fallen warrior, surging through the meridians and bones of all who seek its path. But I cannot shake the vision. Was that the immortal realm from millions of years ago, or was it an entirely different reality? If it was our history, why are there no records of those terrifying monsters? In that memory, humanity was pathetic, hiding behind stone walls just to survive while demons ruled the earth. But today, the immortal realm belongs to us. What you saw did not happen here. The silver snake's voice echoes in my head. I quickly shift my body to hide the snake from Lu Konglan's sight, speaking to the creature through my mind. I suspected as much. That world was different. Everyone there was monstrously strong. The man with the stone tablet felt far more powerful than I am. Even among immortal emperors, he would be at the absolute peak. Was he a peak immortal emperor? I demand. The silver snake gives a lazy, dismissive yawn. Sure, let's go with that. I practically explode with rage. What do you mean? Let us go with that. Give me a straight answer. That damn snake is going to be the death of me. And that is when I realized the truth was far more dangerous than I imagined. You know, people who stop talking halfway through a sentence deserve to be torn apart. But the little snake didn't care. It just gave me a cold, dead stare. It hissed that knowing too much would only get me killed. According to him, I only needed to worry about the master of the tomb. The master wasn't actually that strong. If I focused on my cultivation and pushed my potential to the limit, I'd surpass him in no time. I curled my lips in annoyance. Part of me wanted to pin this snake to the ground and beat him until he spilled his secrets, just like I did to that brute earlier. But there was one small problem. I couldn't actually beat this snake yet. I started wondering if the damn thing was male or female. If it's a male, I'll wait until I'm powerful enough to catch him and turn him into snake wine. But if it's a female, what kind of trash are you thinking about now? Sensing my stray thoughts, the little snake didn't hesitate. It lunged, sinking its twin fangs deep into the flesh of my middle finger. I gritted my teeth as the sharp pain radiated through my arm, but I didn't pull away. I knew exactly what was happening. A massive surge of pure, refined energy began flowing from its fangs, pouring directly into my body. It was a constant stream of power, nourishing my spiritual root with every passing second. Last time, I had to absorb a medicine man just to condense a second-grade, colorless spiritual root. But this was different. This energy was explosive. My rank skyrocketed, jumping from a low-tier second grade all the way to a high-tier fourth grade. I had completely shattered the barrier between the third and fourth grades in a single session. The process felt like an eternity. When I finally opened my eyes and looked around, Liu Konglan was gone. That muscular brute had already left. In his place, a piece of white paper sat on the ground, held down by a heavy stone. Written in messy, crooked handwriting was an address. He was inviting me to the great desolate city. I folded the paper and tossed it into my spatial ring. I took one last look at the misty mountain peak, then turned my gaze toward the path below. It was time to head down the mountain, because the real game was finally about to begin. 19 days had passed since the group first arrived at Tengyun Mountain. During this time, Xiao He had pushed himself to the absolute limit. He crawled from the 25,000th step all the way to the 28,000th. His raw talent hadn't changed, but his cultivation did. He finally broke through the body-refining realm, reaching the second level of foundation establishment. He was satisfied with his progress. The only reason he was still lingering on those steps. He was waiting for Huai to descend from the higher peaks. They say going down is easier than going up, and I proved it. I moved like a lightning bolt, my footsteps leaving nothing but afterimages on the mountain trail. I finally skidded to a halt right in front of Xiao He. "Huai, over here!" Xiao He shouted, waving his hand as he jogged toward me. "You're finally down. Any later and we would have missed the Great Yan Imperial capital selection entirely." He stared at me and his eyes widened. It had been over 2 weeks since we last met. To him, my aura felt different. I was steadier, sharper, and my power had become a deep, unfathomable abyss. We finally reached the Great Yan Imperial capital, but we were the latecomers. We arrived just as the sun set, exactly one night before the sect entrance exams and the arrival of the elders. After the long, dusty journey, I wasn't in the mood for small talk. I didn't give a damn about networking with the so-called prodigies of the Great Yan Kingdom. I went straight to the room Xiao He arranged and passed out immediately. But Xiao He didn't have that luxury. The Cao Merchant Guild is a titan in this kingdom, with branches in every major city. When a business gets that big, the social obligations become a prison. As the future heir of the guild, the moment he stepped into the capital, he was swarmed. City lords from every corner of the map dragged him out for banquets and secret meetings. The stage was set, and the players were all in place. But little did they know, the real monster was just waking up. The city lord had a solid impression of him. This was the ultimate backup plan. If his path to power ever hit a dead end, he could simply return home and inherit a multi-billion-dollar fortune. They arrived at the imperial capital just after 5 in the evening. After sleeping through the entire afternoon, Huai was wide awake by nightfall. With nothing but energy to burn, he leaped from his balcony and scaled the walls, landing flat on his back on the roof to stare at the endless stars. Suddenly, a slender figure flickered into view. Xiao He landed right beside him, her face flushed red from the alcohol. Huai was stunned. How did she find him? She just rolled her eyes. Her room was directly above his, and his footprints on her balcony were a dead giveaway. Huai grumbled. Were the cleaners at this inn really that diligent? To leave the balcony so clean that even his boots left a mark? Xiao He just smirked, staying silent as the late autumn wind began to bite. The night air carried a sharp chill. Xiao He huddled into her thin silk dress, her eyes drifting towards Su Huai's thick, oversized black robe. She wasn't subtle, she was freezing. When she dropped a hint for him to be a gentleman and offer her his coat, Su Huai didn't even blink. He looked her dead in the eye and told her he had no gentlemanly grace to give. Cao Yi let out a long, frustrated sigh. She told him straight to his face that with an attitude like that, he would stay single for the rest of his life. And that's when Su Huai's voice finally got loud. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Cao Yi couldn't believe her eyes. Su Huai was being a total cheapskate. He wouldn't even give a freezing girl a coat to stay warm. Who could ever fall for a man this stingy? Su Huai finally snapped. He was freezing too. In a fit of rage, he threw open his outer robe. If she was so brave, she could just crawl in and share it with him. Cao Yi didn't back down. She bit her lip and lunged straight for his chest. But she didn't find a warm embrace. Instead, she got a face full of empty fabric. Su Huai had already jumped to his feet. He tossed the robe onto her head and started cursing. He asked her if she had any shame at all. If she was really that bold, his room was right downstairs. He dared her to follow him. In the end, Su Huai tucked tail and ran away in total defeat. He was a legendary warrior with his mouth, but a complete coward in reality. Cao Yi sat alone on the roof, clutching his discarded clothes. She wondered why she was acting so wild tonight. Usually, she was the perfect eldest daughter of the Cao family. Every word and every action had to be flawless. She was raised to be a crowd pleaser, forced to make everyone like her. It was a suffocating way to live. But then she met Su Huai. He was powerful and mysterious, yet he acted like a common street thug. He was the only person who made her drop her guard. Tonight, the wine gave her a desperate kind of courage. Whatever she said or did could be blamed on the alcohol tomorrow. She could pretend none of this ever happened. But as she buried her face in his robe, everything changed. He buried his face deep in his black robes and let out a heavy sigh. He thought his body was his ultimate trump card. But he was wrong. His plan had failed before it even started. Even for free, nobody wanted what he was selling. Talk about a total disaster. The next morning, sunlight drenched the Imperial Capital Plaza. Thousands of geniuses gathered, all dreaming of the immortal path. Cao Yi and I stood at the very back of the crowd. By unspoken agreement, neither of us mentioned the disaster from the night before. Cao Yi leaned in, his voice barely a whisper. Su Huai, your talent doesn't even come close to the Yanyue sect's standards. Their requirement for new disciples was at least a grade 3 high-level spirit root. Su Huai? He was barely a grade 2. You're not actually planning to drag an elder into an alley and beat them up, are you? I stared at him, offended. How can you be so crude? I'm a bright, cheerful, and law-abiding young man. In his eyes, I was apparently some kind of elder-beating thug. Cao Yi just turned away. 2 weeks ago, you buried a 70-year-old man outside of Luo City. I didn't miss a beat. You dug the hole. You filled the dirt. How exactly is that my fault? Cao Yi froze. He thought back to that night. The fire, the digging, he had done all the heavy lifting. Meanwhile, Su Huai had just stood there with his hands in his pockets, doing absolutely nothing. He was a complete menace. Cao Yi grit his teeth in frustration. Su Huai, you really have no shame. While we were busy bickering at the back of the line, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Pure instinct took over. Before I could think, I executed a perfect shoulder throw. A loud thud echoed as a figure slammed into the dirt. It was Luo Yuan. He lay there dazed, with a shoulder that was definitely out of its socket. Luo Yuan, what the hell are you doing here? Nobody expected to see him in a place like this. And that's when everything changed. Cao Yi blinks. She pulls a branch out of thin air and pokes Luo Yuanhe right in his stiff face. Luo's lip twitches as he clutches his dislocated shoulder. He finally understands the pain Yansu felt after that infamous slap. He glares at Su Huai with a look of pure disbelief. I just came to say hello, he groans, and you hit me with a full body slam? It is a miracle you were not holding a sword. I cannot help but smile awkwardly as I help him to his feet. My survival instincts from my past life are still way too sharp. Sorry, Brother Luo, I did not realize it was you. Meanwhile, Cao Yi has already reverted to her elegant lady persona. She acts as if she was not just poking a man with a stick moments ago. "Brother Luo," she asks softly, "shouldn't you be with the third prince? Where are they?" Luo Yuanhe grips his arm. With a sickening crack, he pops his shoulder back into place. "Brother Yan is already a disciple of the heavenly cold palace," he explains, "and Miss Situ was pre-selected. They do not need to deal with these tedious exams. They left 2 weeks ago." Cao Yi tilts her head in confusion. "Then why are you here? Why join the line for the moon masking sect?" Luo Yuanhe lets out a heavy, tired sigh. "To be honest, there is a massive gap in our status. At the heavenly cold palace, he would be a core disciple. I would just be a nobody in the outer sect. We could never be true friends like that." He looks at the crowd with a new sense of determination. "I refuse to be a lackey. I would rather join a different sect and earn my own way. I have to admit, I respect the guy a little more now. That is, unless he is just a really good liar." He chose to walk away from a guaranteed future to start from zero. And that is when I realized this man might be more dangerous than he looks. Maybe they finally listened to me. Or maybe they did their own research and realized the Yanlei Immortal sect really does have the most beautiful women. It doesn't matter. From now on, we are brothers for life, sharing every bit of glory and every ounce of pain. We waited in line for 30 minutes. Finally, the moment of truth arrived. 22 different sects were recruiting across the square. Most were small-time players from the Great Yan Dynasty, but the heavy hitters were all there. The Tianhan Palace and the Yanlei Immortal sect. Then it was my turn. My stats? A 4th grade superior spirit root. But there was a catch. It had 0 attributes. The elder looked me up and down. He hesitated. In this world, a spirit root with no attributes is usually a one-way ticket to being a loser. But I stood there with total confidence. He figured I might be a hidden gem and slammed the red seal onto my papers. Huai. Qualification passed. I stepped aside, joining Cao Yi, who had already made the cut with his 4th grade water root. That left only Luo Yuanhe. He was the bold one, ditching the Tianhan Palace line at the last second to join us. With a 4th grade superior wind root, he passed with flying colors. The elder packed up the final set of documents. Out of 5,400 hopefuls, only 11 of us remained. Elder Haolai stood up, his voice booming across the square. He was an outer sect elder for the Yanlei Immortal sect, and he looked at the survivors with a cold gaze. The real test was only just beginning. In the end, only 11 candidates remain, with Shar standing among the final few. The elder scans the group, his voice cold and heavy. He knows these kids are the top geniuses of their hometowns, fueled by pride and ambition. But as a man who has seen it all, he offers a brutal reality check. The Dayan dynasty is nothing more than a tiny, remote speck on the map. In the Grand Immortal realm, secular kingdoms like this are as common as blades of grass. Based on past experience, over 100,000 geniuses will gather for the sect's entrance trials. Out of that massive crowd, fewer than 500 will actually earn the right to cultivate. The weight of those words hits like a physical blow. The 11 youths lower their heads, their confidence shattering. Even the usually arrogant Cao Ye looks grim. A grade 3 spirit root is the bare minimum to even show up, but the data doesn't lie. The average standard for the Yanyue Immortal sect is a grade 4 spirit root. With his low cultivation, Cao Ye's chances of passing are almost non-existent. The elder lets the silence hang in the air, giving them time to feel the pressure before he speaks again. He warns them that failure is common, but it comes with a price. Due to the sect's ancient rules, those who fail the trial aren't sent home. Instead, they are forced to stay in Chenyu Valley for 3 full years before they are allowed to return. This is the final warning. With their talent, other lesser sects would beg to have them. But if they choose the Yanyue Immortal sect, there is no turning back. The stakes are set. The choice is life or death. Yet, despite the terrifying odds, not a single one of the 11 moves an inch. They already knew the rules, and they are ready to gamble everything. But nobody expected what happened next. The elder waited. Silence filled the air. When it was clear no one would back out, he finally spoke. "If no one is leaving, then go. Say your final goodbyes. We gather here tomorrow morning at the designated hour." Cao Yang watched his daughter, a mix of pride and heartbreak on his face. She was his world, and she had never left Luo City. Now she would be gone for at least 3 years. It was a long time to say goodbye. As for me, I had no family to see me off. I spent my last day wandering the great Yan capital with Luo Yuanhe. He suggested hitting the local entertainment district for some music and wine. After all, the Yanle Immortal sect was strictly business, no fun allowed, but I shut him down immediately. For Luo, the sect was just the start of a journey, but for me, the Yanle Immortal sect was a paradise. It was the sacred ground where I would finally transform from a boy into a man. I challenged him to a game of rock, paper, scissors to decide our fate. I looked at him with a wicked grin. "Brother Luo, what are you going to throw?" He froze, his eyes wide. "Do I have to tell you?" I chuckled. "Not at all, but just so you know, I'm throwing scissors." Luo looked at the sky and sighed. He knew I was just playing with him. Even though I held all the cards, I still insisted on this fake democracy. He actually thought I was being kind. We spent the rest of the day raiding the Imperial Chamber of Commerce. By sunset, my spatial ring was packed to the brim with every luxury and daily necessity I could find. Luo looked at the mountain of supplies and shook his head. He was starting to wonder if I was going there to cultivate or if I was just going on a permanent vacation, and he had no idea just how right he was. Luo Yuanhe thought joining the Yanyue Immortal sect would be an easy life of luxury. He was dead wrong. Huai dragged him across the entire capital for hours, and for what? A few bags of ordinary candlelight flower seeds. By the time they returned that evening, Luo Yuanhe was clutching his back in agony. Under Cao Yi's shocked gaze, he didn't even glance at the massive farewell feast his father had spent a fortune on. He crawled into his room and collapsed instantly. He was out cold before his head hit the pillow. The next morning, Elder Hao finished the final head count and led the group toward a 10-meter-long flying vessel. Tethered to the front of the ship was a massive rank 5 flying dragon, snorting with enough power to shake the air. Luo Yuanhe leaned against the deck, staring at the beast in total awe. This was the power of a top-tier sect. In the Great Yan Kingdom, a rank 5 powerhouse is a king. Here, at the Yanyue Immortal sect, they're just beasts of burden used to pull a carriage. Cao Yi waved a final goodbye to her father and turned around, rolling her eyes at the display. She warned Luo Yuanhe that if the emperor heard him, he'd be so happy. He'd challenge Luo's father to a duel on the spot. Luo Yuanhe coughed awkwardly and shut his mouth. He knew better than to push his luck. Suddenly, Elder Hao gave the command. The dragon let out a deafening roar, its wings beating the ground into a massive sandstorm. The vessel slowly ascended, piercing the sky. As the capital faded into the distance, Cao Yi's mood plummeted. While boys are like wild horses once they leave home, girls tend to feel the sting of homesickness much harder. Luo Yuanhe opened his mouth to comfort her, but no words came out. He nudged me for help, but I just called the whole scene melodramatic. Still, I reached into my spatial ring and pulled out a pack of soft tissues. She was going to need them for the long journey ahead. Cry if you want to, just let it all out. Cao Yi spins around, eyes wide with pure annoyance. I'm just feeling a little sentimental. Who told you I was going to cry? I don't say a word. I just blink and point a finger toward Luo Yuanhe. Luo Yuanhe freezes. Once again, his brain has completely short-circuited. Just then, a young student invites the group into the main cabin. Inside, the long tables are overflowing with exotic snacks and local fruits. I dive in without a shred of shame. Within seconds, I've made myself right at home, acting like best friends with a group of total strangers. Cao Yi joins in, bringing out specialties from Luocheng to share with the crowd. But at the doorway, one man is standing alone, shaking with silent rage. Luo Yuanhe is fuming. Thanks to Huai, his storage ring is a desert. Aside from some basic daily necessities, he has absolutely nothing to show for himself. What was he supposed to do? Invite Elder Hao for a drink and offer him a bottle of soy sauce? Elder Hao is a different breed entirely. He is a powerhouse at the 6th stage, a genuine Earth Immortal. Despite his terrifying strength, he is gentle and carries no ego. Feeling a bit tipsy from the wine, he can't resist the student's constant pestering. He sits at the head of the table, sharing stories and secrets about the sect's inner workings. Days pass. The flying vessel surges forward, crossing endless valleys and jagged straits. Finally, they reach a lake so vast it looks like a boundless ocean. In the center of the water, a massive stone mountain towers 1,000 feet into the sky. The peaks are covered in magnificent palaces and towering pavilions. At the base of the mountain, a sprawling town teems with life. Elder Hao stands at the bow of the ship. He looks at the grand buildings of the Immortal sect, then looks down at the failed cultivators in the town below, men who chased their dreams only to end up struggling for survival. He lets out a long, heavy sigh. The candidates from the other regions haven't arrived yet. The entrance exam won't begin for another 4 or 5 days. Until then, the students are free to do as they please. But in a place like this, freedom is often the calm before the storm. The elder dropped the group at the harbor of Chenyu Valley. His instructions were simple. Wait for the signal on your identity tokens, then head up the mountain alone. With that, he vanished back toward the sect. Most of the candidates traded good luck wishes and parted ways. Huai and his 2 companions stuck together, navigating the crowded streets. Over thousands of years, this valley had seen generations of failed geniuses. Their loss was the town's gain, creating a massive industry of inns and shops for every new batch of hopefuls night fell. After a quick dinner, Huai slipped away from his friends. He scaled a rooftop, his eyes locked onto a single window in the distance. Through the paper screen, a flickering candle revealed a small silhouette. Even after an entire lifetime, he recognized her instantly. This was the person he had longed for across time and space. Inside the Tengyuan Inn, Chu Siyu sat huddled on a hard wooden bed, her eyes cast downward. Outside, a heavy fist hammered against her door. It was her uncle, and he was losing his patience. He begged her to see reason. To him, the first prince was a golden ticket. Power, status, and the chance to become a princess. All she had to do was submit. But the room remained silent. Chu Siyu didn't say a word. Finally, the uncle's fake kindness snapped. His voice turned cold and venomous. He screamed at her to stop acting high and mighty. In his eyes, she was just a pathetic girl who could barely refine a few basic pills. He thought he could force her hand. He had no idea who was watching from the shadows. Think you can turn the world upside down and join the Yanli sect just to escape us? Dream on. The middle-aged man screamed at the locked door, his voice dripping with malice. Open this door right now, or when I get in there. He never finished that threat. The man suddenly spun around, sensing a presence that shouldn't be there. Standing right beside him was a youth clad in pitch-black robes. He wore a gentle, polite smile, but his eyes told a different story. They were devoid of warmth, ice-cold, deadly. With just one look, the man felt a shiver run down his spine as a wave of pure terror washed over him. The youth tucked his hands into his sleeves, his smile never wavering. Why are you banging on someone else's door? The man wanted to snap back and tell him to mind his own business, but the words died in his throat. Fear forced him to change his tone instantly. The girl inside, she is my niece, he stammered, his bravado crumbling. She is just throwing a tantrum and being difficult. The youth nodded slowly, his expression unreadable. Is that so? In that case, let me buy you a drink. We can head to the best tavern in town. What do you say? The man hesitated, his face twisting with unease. I still have business to attend to. The youth's gaze instantly turned razor sharp, his voice dropping an octave. What? Are you saying you won't give me face? Under that suffocating pressure, the man recoiled like a beaten dog, forced to follow. Behind the heavy door, a girl peeked out from the shadows of an oversized hood. Her name was Chu Siyu. Her pale face was stained with the faint marks of dried tears. Only after confirming the man had finally left did she collapse into the corner, clutching her blanket. She drifted into a heavy, exhausted sleep. But even in her dreams, the nightmare was far from over. She was only 6 years old when her world fell apart. Her mother vanished without a trace. Her father spiraled into a drunken void. One dark night, he fell into a river and was devoured by demonic beasts. That is when the nightmare truly began. Her long-lost aunt suddenly appeared, claiming she wanted to raise the girl, but she only had eyes for the family fortune. She stole every single asset Chu Siyu's parents left behind. What could a 6-year-old girl possibly do? To the world, Siyu's cries for help were just a child's nonsense. In public, her aunt and uncle acted like elegant swans, but behind closed doors, they were nothing but disgusting toads. Siyu was trapped in a golden cage. She would have traded her entire inheritance just for a taste of freedom, but her aunt had a much darker plan in mind. A marriage was arranged with the first prince of the Great Desolate Dynasty. This man was a legendary predator. His palace was filled with hundreds of concubines. No beautiful woman in the kingdom was safe from him, whether they were young maidens or respectable wives. Siyu was paralyzed with fear. The prince's influence in the immortal realm was absolute. Her only hope was to join the moon-masking immortal sect. She inherited her mother's genius talent and mastered the art of alchemy. She was ready. She secretly entered the sect's preliminary trials to escape her fate. The plan was going perfectly, or so she thought. Somehow, her aunt and uncle tracked her across the kingdom. They found her all the way at the entrance to Moon-Masking Valley. A single burning tear rolled down Siyu's face. In a daze, she saw her long-lost mother appearing in a dream. Her mother reached out with a handkerchief to wipe away the tears. It was just like when she was a little girl, but the nightmare was far from over. A single blooming candlelight flower. That was the last gift her mother left behind. Her mother's voice was a soft whisper. Siyu, even if I am no longer here, you must stay strong. Be happy, just like this flower. Chu Siyu bit her lip, nodding as tears streamed down her face. Time lost all meaning. Finally, the morning sun pierced through the thin window paper, waking Chu Siyu from her deep slumber. For the first time in 10 years, she had truly slept. Her soul felt restored. Despite crying through the night, her face didn't feel heavy or swollen. Instead, she felt strangely refreshed, as if the dream itself had washed away her sorrow. She sat up, deciding it was time to find a new inn to stay in. But as she pulled back the covers, she froze. Her heart stopped. There, resting right by her bed, was a massive bouquet of pale blue candlelight flowers. She stared in total silence. Someone had been in her room while she slept. Meanwhile, back in the bustling town, Huai let out a massive yawn as he returned to his inn. He pushed open the door to find Cao Yi and Luo Yuanhe already at the breakfast table. Without missing a beat, Huai snatched a bun right off Cao Yi's plate. Then he reached over and grabbed the chicken leg straight out of Luo Yuanhe's bowl. Luo Yuanhe winced, staring at his now empty bowl of plain porridge. He didn't dare complain. But Cao Yi wasn't interested in the food. He leaned back, eyeing Huai with deep suspicion. He wanted to know the truth. Where exactly did you go to cause trouble last night? And that was when Huai realized he had some explaining to do. Huai didn't come home all night, and his friends aren't letting it slide. Luo Yuanhe gives him a warning, telling him that a handsome guy needs to protect himself from female predators like Cao Yi. Cao Yi explodes with rage. She snatches a meat bun right off Luo Yuanhe's plate and hurls it at Huai's head like a missile. She screams that she would never sneak into his room, but Huai catches the bun mid-air and takes a massive bite. He looks her dead in the eye and calls her a literal ghost. Luo Yuanhe is the real victim here. He watches his breakfast disappear into Huai's mouth and slams his chopsticks down. He's sick of their flirting, especially when it costs him his meal. He leans in with a smirk, reminding Huai of his past arrogance. Back at the capital, Huai claimed the local clubs were so trash that even a dog wouldn't step foot in them. So, if he's too good for the high life, where exactly did he spend the night? Huai doesn't miss a beat. He claims he was busy being a hero. He tells them he was taking a walk by the lake when he saw a middle-aged man drowning. As a self-proclaimed model citizen, he says he couldn't just stand there and watch. He insists he dove straight into the freezing water to drag the man to safety. Xiao He isn't buying the story for a second. She stares him down, asking the one question that matters. If he really went on a daring rescue mission, where is the man he saved? Suhuai's response is about to change the entire mood of the morning. Huai looks up, squeezing out a single crocodile tear. He tells his friends the lake was a complete death trap. Vicious water monsters were swarming, devouring everything in sight. He claims he tried his best to save the drowning man, but the monsters were just too fast. Luo Yuanhe sighs, telling Huai not to blame himself for the tragedy. He assumes Huai spent the entire night grieving. But Huai wasn't mourning at all. He explains that the dying man left him a young, helpless niece to look after. Luo asks exactly how young this girl is. Huai looks him dead in the eye and says she is 16 years old. A poor, defenseless infant in need of his protection. The group falls silent. Cao Yi shoots him a look of pure disgust and calls him a complete beast. But Huai feels totally misunderstood. Is he a beast? Absolutely not. He spent the entire night in that girl's room doing nothing but carefully wiping away her tears. In his own mind, he is the living embodiment of virtue and grace. Feeling exhausted from his supposed heroic deeds, Huai decides to call it a day. His friends tell him to stay awake and start his cultivation training, but Huai isn't interested in hard work. He tells them to forget it, slams his door shut, and heads straight for bed. And just like that, the conversation was over. High-level cultivators don't actually need to sleep. But unless they are deep in meditation, almost no one skips it. Why? Because eating and sleeping are the ultimate human pleasures. In ancient times, a legendary emperor started a massive trend. He claimed that to reach godhood, you had to give up meat, clear your heart, abandon greed, and sever all emotions. For a long time, the entire world followed his lead. But there was a problem. The more these people practiced, the less human they became. They lost interest in everything. They stopped eating. They stopped drinking. They abandoned their wives, ignored their parents, and cut off all their friends. They spent every single day rotting away in dark, secret chambers just to increase their power. The result? Sure, their cultivation levels went through the roof, but they lost their souls. They were training just for the sake of training. Eventually, they became no different from the rocks on the ground. Finally, another emperor couldn't stand the stupidity anymore. He issued a decree to the entire immortal realm. He pointed out that the great emperor Motua was a spiritual being born from stone. He attained immortality because he was literally a rock with no emotions and no need for food. The message was clear. You are creatures of flesh and blood. Why are you trying to copy a boulder? Are you all insane? In the modern era, no one is stupid enough to starve themselves anymore. Cultivators now cling to their human habits as a matter of pride. After all, if you lose your humanity, immortality is just a life sentence, and that is a price most are no longer willing to pay. Emotions are a double-edged sword. They can birth inner demons or define a man's entire existence. While the sun climbed high, Huai was fast asleep in his inn, but outside the town was screaming in terror. A bloated corpse had been pulled from the lake, and the rumors were spreading like wildfire. Witnesses claim a man in black dragged the victim to the shore. Without a word, he kicked the man into the freezing depths. The victim was a skilled swimmer. He fought for his life and clawed his way back to the bank multiple times. But every single time he reached safety, a heavy boot sent him flying back into the water. Desperate and drowning, the man screamed for help. A few bystanders tried to intervene, hoping to earn some good karma. But the man in black was a monster. He hovered in mid-air, cold and indifferent. With a single flick of his finger, he split the lake wide open. A massive wave surged over 100 meters wide. His voice boomed like thunder across the water. Let this be your warning. Step in and you die. The crowd froze. The heroes stayed on the shore. They watched in absolute silence as the victim struggled to stay afloat. Finally, the man in black grew bored. He conjured a massive spectral hand from thin air. With one brutal motion, he slammed the victim straight to the bottom of the lake. It was pure insanity. Xiao He and Luo Yuanhe stood in the crowd, speechless. This was the rescue Su Huai had bragged about. If Buddha saw this, he would be on his knees begging Su Huai to never save anyone again. But as the town descended into chaos, Chu Siyu was already on the move. She was hunting for her next destination, and she wasn't looking back. Chu Siyu fell into a heavy silence. He didn't feel grief. Instead, he felt a strange sense of relief. Between the best sleep of his life and those mysterious flowers on his nightstand, he couldn't bring himself to leave this inn. His logic screamed at him to run, but his heart refused to let go. After all, why live as a stray when you can finally sleep in peace? But a dark cloud hung over him. His uncle had been brutally butchered by an unknown hand. Who did the old man offend? More importantly, would that bloodthirsty killer come for him next? As the sun dipped below the horizon, Chu Siyu locked his door tight. He gripped the mysterious flowers, his mind racing in circles. He couldn't stop thinking about the stranger who snuck into his room last night. Were they a guardian angel or a cold-blooded monster? 2 hours passed. Then 4. The entire town fell into a deathly silence. The mystery visitor was nowhere to be found. Exhaustion finally won the battle. Chu Siyu curled into the corner of his wooden bed, his head nodding like a tired ostrich. His forehead hit the frame with a loud thud, but he didn't even flinch. He was out cold. He had no idea that the real nightmare was just beginning. Su Huai sat perched on the roof tiles across from her window, watching her every move. He couldn't help but smirk. This wealthy heiress was as clumsy as ever. Paralyzed by social anxiety and buried under a mountain of depression, she had completely shut out the world. She reminded him of Alice. In his previous life, Alice was a legendary whale that sang at a frequency of 45 hertz. Since normal whales only communicate between 15 and 25 hertz, Alice was effectively a mute to her own kind. She was a ghost in a crowded ocean, surrounded by millions, yet eternally alone. When loneliness becomes a habit, you live without a trace and die, without a sound. Su Huai could end the charade right now. He could storm into her room, shake her awake, and reveal the cold, hard truth. He could tell her to her face that he was the assassin who slaughtered her uncle. He could force her to be his bandit queen or face the consequences. But he knew her better than that. With her stubborn pride and fragile mind, she would either try to kill him or take her own life on the spot. Winning her over wasn't about brute force. It was a high-stakes game of skill. She was a drowning soul, hypersensitive to every ripple in the water. In his past life, he had accidentally offered her a single straw to grasp. Now he was no longer just a straw. To her, he was the only thing keeping her from the abyss. And that's when he realized he held her entire world in the palm of his hand. Su Huai played the role of the silent guardian. This time, he wouldn't just watch the tide rise. He was going to drain the entire river dry. That night, he didn't sneak into her room. He sat on the rooftop opposite her window, keeping watch until dawn. Only when he was sure the wealthy lady was safe did he vanish into the empty streets. Time passed. The town overflowed with newcomers from every corner of the immortal realm. They all shared a single dream, entering the Yanle immortal sect. The true geniuses were finally stepping into the light. Luo Yuanhe kept mentioning a boy staying downstairs named Tang Sang. Su Huai wondered if he'd see some blue-silver grass, but this was a different legend entirely. Tang Sang was a legitimate monster, 18 years old, 4th stage mortal shedding realm, a rank 8 thunder spiritual root. In this world, talent like that is described as terrifying. It was a protagonist tier stat sheet that left Su Huai's past life in the dust. He couldn't help but wonder if other Sons of Destiny would show up for the trial. On the morning of the 5th day, their identity tokens finally flickered with a faint green light. The wait was finally over. Su Huai and his team made their move. They were heading up the mountain immediately, and that's when the real trial began. At the foot of the mountain where the Yanyue sect sits, a massive barrier blocks the way. Only candidates holding an official identity token can pass through the grand array. The first hurdle is the heart-probing gate. It sounds impressive, but it is really just a giant stone archway covered in ancient runes. Its purpose is simple: it blocks anyone with an evil heart or a weak will. Nobody knows how it actually works. By the time our trio arrives, many young cultivators have already passed the test. Others stand outside the gate, faces twisted with rage, loss, and resentment. Luo Yuanhe rubs his hands together, his nerves on edge. Cao Yi is not doing any better. He fears the darkness he has witnessed in human nature will cause the gate to reject him. Su Huai watches them and shakes his head. To him, hesitating only makes you look guilty and insecure. He steps forward with total confidence. In his mind, a kind and honest person like himself has nothing to fear. He expects to walk right through. But then, thud. Su Huai's foot hits an invisible wall. He is blocked, dead in his tracks. His smile vanishes instantly. He stares at the stone in disbelief. "Is this old rock broken?" he shouts. "Me? Heartless? You have got to be kidding me." Cao Yi and Luo Yuanhe stand frozen in shock. The most confident man in the group just failed the very first test. Cao Yi's gaze was sharp, filled with doubt and suspicion. Was this really the bypass Su Huai had promised? Su Huai felt his face burn with embarrassment. He slammed his palm against the stone door, and the Ouroboros ring on his middle finger flared with an eerie crimson light. He leaned close to the gate and whispered a lethal threat. "Don't make me lose face. If you don't let me in, I'll bring someone here tomorrow to use you as a public toilet." He kicked the gate again, but the barrier held firm. Verbal threats were useless. Now Su Huai was actually annoyed. He gathered spiritual energy into his fingertip and lunged forward. With one poke, he pierced the barrier. Spiderweb cracks exploded from the point of impact, and the entire shield shattered into 1,000 pieces. A massive hole opened up before them. Su Huai strolled through the gate with a straight face. He muttered to himself that he was pure, kind, and handsome. The type of guy who helps beautiful 18-year-old grandmas cross the street. There was no way a guy like him could have a crooked heart. Watching the scene unfold, Cao Yi covered her face in pure shame. Luo Yuan was completely stunned. He never imagined someone would use such a crude, violent method to bypass the heart-testing gate. But thinking about it, it actually made sense. The gate was only a test for a disciple's willpower, not a high-level array meant to stop powerful cultivators. Su Huai didn't care about tests. He only cared about results, and that's when they realized rules meant nothing to a man like him. Su Huai's power level is far beyond the 5th or 6th rank. The ancient master who built this formation never could have imagined a literal immortal venerable would be bored enough to sneak into a sect entrance exam. It is like a god playing in a sandbox. Luckily, the array was not a one-time use. As the barrier shattered into glowing dust, it quickly pulled itself back together. But the damage was already done. Every examinee stuck outside the heart interrogation gate was now staring at Su Huai. They looked at him with pure worship, like high school delinquents staring at their gang leader. Su Huai's eye twitched. For some reason, he kept a straight face and gave them a cold nod. That was a massive mistake. To the failed examinees, that nod was a divine command. They lost their minds and charged the gate with renewed fury. They head-butted the barrier and kicked it with everything they had. One guy even pulled out a sledgehammer weighing over 50 pounds, swinging it like a man possessed. Su Huai was speechless. This much noise was guaranteed to attract the sect elders. If they caught him cheating, he would be thrown out on his face. The elders were no match for him, but Empress Yan Yue was a different story. She could pick him up with one hand and force him to stand in the corner like a naughty child. He could not wait another second. Ignoring the plan to stay low, Su Huai looked at Cao Yi, who had just passed the gate. Everything was about to spiral out of control. Su Huai didn't stick around to chat. After a quick word to Luo Yuanhe, he bolted toward the mountain at top speed. His plan was simple. As long as no one recognized him, his little cheating scandal never happened. If you run fast enough, the consequences can't catch you. Meanwhile, at the Music Sect Square, Chu Siyu was struggling. She was buried under a massive robe, her small face completely hidden by her hood. For her, social anxiety was more than a mental hurdle. It was a physical weight. The roar of the massive crowd was suffocating. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she fought for every breath, desperately searching for a quiet corner to hide from the world. Miles away, Huai finally slowed down as he merged into the dense crowd. He let out a long breath of relief. He knew he was safe. Why? Because the sect elders were far too arrogant to believe the truth. The heart-striking gate was protected by a massive array built by an 8th-rank immortal king. To the elders, the idea of someone poking a hole through that barrier with a single finger was pure insanity. They'd laugh in your face if you told them. To pull off a feat like that, you'd need the power of a legendary immortal emperor. And in this entire realm, those monsters are 1 in a million. The elders thought their mountain was invincible. They were wrong. To reach the peak of cultivation, joining the immortal sect was the only option. Some whispered that members of the Ghost Clan might try to sneak in from the abandoned abyss, but that was a death sentence. The sect square was protected by a massive array personally forged by Emperor Yanyue. Any outsider or anyone harboring ill intent would be obliterated instantly. Whether these newcomers hated the sect was a mystery, but the hostility toward one specific disciple was very real. The moment Huai stepped onto the square, he saw it. A candidate was ruthlessly berating his wealthy benefactor, Chu Siyu. The bully didn't use a single swear word. Instead, he spat venom about her family and her upbringing. Each sentence was a sharp blade stabbing directly into her heart. Chu Siyu stood there, her face deathly pale, apologizing over and over. Huai's blood began to boil. How did a piece of trash like this pass the heart-testing gate when he had to cheat just to get through? The gate was clearly broken. As a future pillar of the sect, Huai decided he would have to repair this idiot personally. Huai's expression went dark. He was a man who lived for petty revenge, someone who wouldn't hesitate to bury his enemies alive. Yet he had zero self-awareness. He stood there on his moral high ground, judging a foul-mouthed brat as if he were a saint. "Shut up!" The sudden explosive roar echoed across the area. Every candidate in the vicinity froze in shock. Chu Siyu, already struggling to breathe from the stress, nearly jumped out of her skin, and that's when everything changed. Huai let out a quiet burp and looked up. A youth dressed in black robes was marching toward him, radiating pure aggression. If the kid had been holding a blade, he would have looked exactly like a legendary enforcer from the Yanyue sect. The boy was busy hurling insults at Huai's wealthy patroness. Huai's eyes narrowed as he suppressed his rising fury. He needed a way to release his anger. "What is your name?" Huai roared. The question was deafening. It rattled the air itself. Someone actually dared to bully his lady. If they weren't standing in the middle of the Yanyue sect's main square, things would have ended very differently. Within 15 minutes, Huai would have called Cao Yi to dig a fresh grave. Cao Yi's holes were legendary, wide, deep, and packed with enough dirt to ensure no one ever crawled back out. Even if you were still breathing when the burial started, you weren't coming back. Reasoning? There was no reasoning here. Does anyone actually think it's cool to be fair when their girl is in an argument with a stranger? Does anyone really believe that lecturing her on logic in public makes them look like a hero? Not a chance. In a moment like this, even if she is wrong, you stand by her unconditionally. You can discuss the details later in private, under the blankets, but criticizing your own partner in front of an outsider? Only a fool with no hope of a relationship would do something that stupid. The aggressive youth was paralyzed by Huai's sheer pressure. His confidence shattered instantly. His lips trembled as he struggled to force out a single word. And that was when he realized he had made a fatal mistake. "My name is Sima Liang, 4th Prince of the Great Desolation Dynasty." The young man's voice echoed with arrogance. Huai paused for a moment. "The Great Desolation Dynasty? Perfect." Without a single word of warning, Huai raised his hand and delivered a thunderous slap right across the prince's face. The impact was massive. Sima Liang was left reeling, clutching his burning cheek with eyes full of pure disbelief. "What are you staring at?" Su Huai sneered. Your older brother owes me a massive debt, and in my world, the younger brother pays what the elder owes. Do you understand? Su Huai stepped closer, his gaze turning cold. Besides, I heard you trash-talking this girl. Why are you bullying her? Sima Liang swallowed hard and glanced at the mysterious Chu Siyu. The girl was wrapped so tightly in robes you couldn't even tell if she was human. He wondered if this guy had some kind of X-ray vision. What are you looking at? Answer me, Su Huai barked. Sima Liang shrank back, his royal pride vanishing. She stepped on my foot. And did she apologize? Su Huai asked. No, I didn't hear a single word. Su Huai opened his mouth to argue but stopped. He realized the problem. His wealthy companion spoke so softly she would lose a shouting match with a mosquito. Su Huai could hear her perfectly because of his immortal, venerable cultivation. To his divine ears, her tiny voice was clear. But in this crowded, noisy square, a normal person like Sima Liang stood no chance. The girl didn't bow. She didn't move. She just stood there like a statue, expecting her whisper to be enough. Sima Liang was technically innocent, but in front of Su Huai, that didn't matter. The prince was about to learn that some debts are paid in blood and broken pride, and the lesson was only just beginning. He stood there like an idiot, motionless and silent. To the onlookers, it looked like he had committed a crime and refused to back down. He was staring the victim right in the eye. Su Huai took a breath and looked at Sima Liang. I'll apologize on his behalf, he said, lowering his head slightly. I'm sorry. Sima Liang waved his hand dismissively. It's fine, he stammered. He wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. A crowd was already forming, and a prince has an image to maintain. He had no intention of being stared at like a monkey in a cage, but as he turned to leave, a heavy hand gripped his shoulder, pinning him in place. I apologized for him stepping on your foot. Su Huai's voice turned ice cold. Now it's time to settle the score for the filth that just came out of your mouth. Don't you think you owe him an apology too? Sima Liang's entire body began to tremble. He knew he had a big mouth. As a spare prince with a perfect older brother, he knew the throne was a pipe dream. He had spent his life drinking and hanging out with the wrong crowd, picking up every bad habit imaginable. In the capital, his status was a shield. No one would risk their life just because a prince insulted them. But this wasn't the imperial city. And the man in black? He didn't care about titles. Su Huai knew exactly who he was, a prince of the great desolate dynasty, yet he had already slapped him without a second thought. This man didn't fear the royal family at all. Sima Liang wasn't a fool. He knew exactly what happened to people who crossed a madman. Slowly, the arrogant prince began to bend his knees. Sorry, Sima Liang stammered. Su Huai nearly kicked the man's teeth in. He didn't want a useless apology. Why are you apologizing to me? Apologize to her, Sima Liang scrambled, shifting his bow toward Chu Siyu. He begged for forgiveness, but the girl remained dead silent. Su Huai realized something was off. He stepped forward and yanked back her oversized hood. Her face was ghost white. Cold sweat soaked her forehead. She was hyperventilating, her lips trembling with words she couldn't speak. Great. Her social anxiety was a nightmare. Su Huai didn't waste time. He grabbed her hand and hauled her through the massive crowd. They didn't stop until they reached the dense forest on the edge of the square. Behind them, the other candidates stood in stunned silence. One thought echoed through the plaza. That girl, she was breathtaking. Su Huai had no clue his rich little partner just stunned the entire world. Right now, he was standing in the shadows, completely baffled. Every other student was gathered at the square, terrified of missing the second exam. This forest was a ghost town. So why was she still trembling? Su Huai raised his hand and waved it in front of her face. Chu Siyu flinched violently. It was a tiny movement, but it caused total devastation. Su Huai felt his soul leaving his body. It wasn't the massive crowd she was terrified of. The terrifying truth finally dawned on him. The person she was actually afraid of was him. The more Su Huai thought about it, the more his blood boiled. He became a starving wolf, closing the distance between him and Chu Siyu step by step. He advanced and she retreated. He stalked and she fled. There was nowhere left to run. Her back hit the rough bark of a massive ancient tree. Dead end. With a heavy thud, Huai slammed his hands against the trunk, pinning her in a total tree dong. "Terrified of me now?" he hissed. Xiu curled into herself like a cornered rabbit, trembling uncontrollably. Huai saw her shivering and let a cold smirk play on his lips. "Where was this energy earlier?" he mocked. "You weren't acting this way when you were clinging to me in bed, making those sounds and refusing to get up." Xiu's eyes widened. For a moment, her fear was replaced by pure, unadulterated shock. Chapter 28. A lesson from the heavens. She stared at the man standing inches from her face. She expected him to say something even more insulting. She expected him to be a monster, a predator who would force himself on her. Her nanny had warned her about men like this. She said this was called harassing a lady, a crime that deserved a cold prison cell. Even if she killed him right now, the authorities would call it justifiable self-defense. But there was a problem. He had just saved her life. Deep inside her oversized sleeve, her pale hand gripped a hidden dagger. Her fingers shook with indecision. She had the weapon, but she didn't have the courage to strike. All she could do was shiver as the predator closed in. And that's when everything changed. If he dared to touch her, he was a dead man. Chusiu's grip tightened. The cold silver tip of a hidden blade peeked from her sleeve, ready to draw blood. She braced for the impact, but the blow never landed. Instead, Huai let out a long, weary sigh. He reached out, but not to strike. He gently tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His voice was calm as he told her to put the knife away. Chusiu looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. The boy's arrogant, playful smirk was gone. His eyes were deep and still, reflecting a vast galaxy of stars. He stared directly into her soul and asked a single question. "Chusiu, do you believe in destiny?" She lowered her head, refusing to answer. Huai didn't seem to mind the silence. He leaned back casually, plucking a leaf to bite on as he looked toward the sky. He spoke of the way of heaven and the balance of all things. He told her that spirits dropped into this world are destined to feel like outcasts. He knew her life had been nothing but a nightmare of suffering. That is why, at age 16, the heavens would finally send a knight to protect her, a guardian to listen to her secrets and bring her the happiness she deserved. Then he looked her in the eyes and dropped a bombshell. "Chusiu, I am that knight sent from above." Her eyelashes flickered, her gaze crystal clear. She didn't argue with his words, but she wasn't going to make it easy for him either. She watched him, wondering if this arrogant boy was truly her salvation. But in this world, even destiny has a price. Looking at her innocent act, Huai sighs and closes his eyes. He knows she doesn't believe a word he says. He spits out a leaf and smirks. It was time to prove he knew her better than she knew herself. "You love spicy food, but your body can't handle it," he begins. One bite, and she turns bright red, rambling like a drunk. She loves the color blue, the color of the sky and the endless sea. She hates sweets, yet she adds honey to every medicinal pill she refines. Why? Because life is bitter enough, and she wants others to taste a hint of joy. She's insecure, always clutching something to sleep, yet she's such a light sleeper she always looks exhausted. He even knows her shower routine, body first, then hair. And that habit of swallowing her mouthwash while gargling? He knows that too. Chusiu is stunned. Her mind is racing. This man knows her every secret, as if they had lived together for years. Her heart begins to waver, but Huai isn't finished. Still not convinced, he asks coldly, "Fine. I also know about that tiny mole on your inner left thigh. That was the breaking point." Chusiu snaps. She lunges up, stumbles forward, and bolts. She vanishes like a rabbit fleeing a hawk, disappearing in the blink of an eye. She was gone, but the mystery of Huai was only just beginning. Huai's smile froze on his face. After a long moment, he shook his head in resignation. He had clearly terrified her, but at least he had left a permanent mark on her heart. Once she regained her composure, her mind would be filled with questions, and curiosity is always the first step toward love. Huai reached out toward the direction Chusiu had vanished, his fingers clawing at the empty air. "You can't escape me." He let out a sinister laugh, but then suddenly slapped himself across the face. He was starting to act like one of those cringeworthy, obsessive CEOs from a bad novel. If he wasn't careful, he'd end up reciting pathetic love poems in the middle of the night. It was nearly noon. The candidates who survived the heart-striking gate were finally gathered for the next phase of the trial. As for those who hadn't arrived yet, they were out of luck. If you can't make it to the most important exam of your life on time, you don't deserve a second chance. Suddenly, a thunderous command for silence erupted across the square. Huai returned from the woods and looked up with the rest of the crowd. High above, 3 elders had materialized on a floating platform. The man on the left wore ash-gray robes. His hair and beard were stark white, and his sharp cheekbones gave him a piercing gaze. His beard was over half a meter long, tied into a thick, distinctive braid, but the most intimidating detail was the shimmering badge pinned to his chest. This was the real deal, and the trial was about to get much harder. Look at that medallion. 8 glowing spheres encircle a carved alchemy furnace. That belongs to Chen Tairu, a grade 8 alchemy grandmaster. He is the peak master of Yaoling Peak within the moon-masking immortal sect. In Suhuai's past life, this old man was Chu Shu's master. To his right stands a man in black robes with fiery red hair and a face of stone. He looks like the entire world owes him a fortune. This is Shangguan Shu, head of the War Hall and a level 8 immortal king. He is a monster in close quarters combat. Legend says he once fought a demon king hand-to-hand for 3 days and 3 nights without ever backing down. But the man in the center holding the cane is the real threat, Huang Yuan. He is a level 9 immortal venerable, ranked 9th on the prestigious immortal list. He is one of the few people in the entire moon-masking sect that even Suhuai is wary of. Suhuai could win, but it would be a Pyrrhic victory at best. Huang Yuan is the one who just demanded silence. As the crowd goes dead quiet, he taps his cane against the high platform and speaks. "My name is Huang Yuan. I oversee all affairs of the moon-masking immortal sect. By the sect leader's grace, I serve as the Great Elder. You have all passed the initial screening, proving you are the chosen geniuses of your homelands. You've heard enough inspirational speeches to last a lifetime, so I won't waste your time with more. Let's get straight to the rules of the trial." And that's when the real nightmare began. Huang Yuan's eyes appear cloudy and dull, but a golden light flickers deep within his pupils. He scans the crowd, his gaze sweeping over Tong Song and the few elites gifted with high-grade spiritual roots. Then he stops. His eyes lock onto Suhuai. To anyone else, Suhuai looks pathetic. A weak body, a mediocre grade 4 spiritual root. He's just standing there, glancing around like he's bored. But Huang Yuan sees what the others can't. This boy's aura is completely detached from the energetic youths around him. He doesn't look like a candidate. He looks like a spectator watching a game. Despite decades of combat experience, Huang Yuan cannot see through the boy's cultivation level. Yet, his instincts scream one thing: danger. Is this a fallen king who seized a new body, or an ancient monster regressing to youth? Huang Yuan averts his gaze and looks down, hiding his suspicion. It doesn't matter. The boy passed the heart-questioning gate and the mountain path trial. His heart is stable, he is human, and he harbors no ill will toward the sect. If the kid wants to play, Huang Yuan will let him play. Once he officially becomes a disciple, there will be plenty of ways to trick him into joining the front lines of the Ghost Abyss to fight for humanity. The first trial of the entrance exam is about to begin. The location, the desolate forest secret realm. Rankings will be decided by points, and there are 3 ways to earn them. First, the hunt. Kill monsters and members of the ghost race. A tier 1 kill earns 1 point. A tier 2 kill earns 10 points. The real test is just beginning. The rules are simple, but the stakes are lethal. To survive this trial, you need points. Hunting down a level 3 ghost monster nets you 20 points. A level 4 beast is worth 1,000, but if you manage to slay a level 5 monster, you'll walk away with a staggering 10,000 points. Your identity token records every kill automatically. These points belong to you and you alone. They cannot be traded, and they cannot be stolen. but the real hunt is just beginning. Hidden across the secret realm are 20 green spirit orbs. Each one is worth 1,000 points. Unlike monster kills, these orbs are fair game. You can trade them, gift them, or rip them from the hands of your fallen enemies. If you lose a fight, you surrender your orbs immediately. No lies, no excuses. The sect is watching your every move, so don't let greed cloud your judgment. For those who don't live by the sword, there is another path. This realm is overflowing with rare resources for alchemists and blacksmiths. A grade 1 pill earns you 5 points, while a grade 2 earns 50. If you can craft a grade 3 pill, you'll bag 1,000 points in a single go. Blacksmiths have an even faster route to success. Forge 7 grade 1 weapons, 3 grade 2 weapons, or a single grade 3 masterpiece, and you pass the trial instantly. But don't even think about cheating. The realm's ancient barriers are designed to detect any outside items brought from the world. One mistake, and your journey ends right here. Whether the spiritual energy comes from the secret realm or the outside world doesn't matter. The rules are simple. You have 7 days. Only the top 500 scorers will earn a spot in the Immortal sect's outer gate. Huang Yuan's instructions were easy to digest. The core strategy, pure survival. You hunt monsters, kill ghosts, and stack points to prove your worth. On paper, the point system seems fair. Most candidates here can handle level 1 or level 2 monsters without much trouble. The stronger disciples have an edge, but it isn't a game changer. Not yet. While the rewards for level 4 and level 5 monsters are massive, there is a catch. Even the rare geniuses with level 4 cultivation would likely be slaughtered by a level 4 beast. It's not just about power, it's about the massive gap in combat experience, physical endurance, and martial techniques. Let's be real, not everyone is Huai. Being a level 4 cultivator in your teens is impressive enough, but expecting to be a combat master with veteran experience on top of that? You're dreaming. Because of this, most candidates play it safe and stick to level 3 prey. But here is where it gets interesting. A lazy level 4 genius can easily be overtaken by a level 2 grinder. You killed 5 high-level monsters? That's cute. The guy who stayed up all night killing 50 low-level mobs is already ahead of you. If hunting is a playground for the grinders, then searching for spirit beads is a game reserved strictly for the lucky. And that's when the real chaos began. 20 spirit beads hidden in a massive secret realm. That is not a test. It is finding a needle in a pitch-black ocean. Some losers will spend 7 days searching and find absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, a lucky bastard will trip over a rock and land face first on a treasure, but there is a catch. What does this lootable status even mean? If I hide a bead in my pocket, how would anyone know it is there? Surely every psychopath I meet isn't going to challenge me on sight. Then we have the technical experts, alchemy and forging. That is a different world entirely. It is raw talent, the kind of skill where the heavens literally hand feed you success. A standard Tier 1 alchemist needs 2 to 4 hours for a single batch. If they are lucky, they get 3 to 5 pills. It is exhausting. It is soul-crushing. 5 batches a day is the absolute limit before your mind collapses. That effort equals hunting 20 Tier 2 monsters. After a week, you are looking at 700 points. Based on history, that is a guaranteed pass. Do not look down on 100 points a day. A Tier 1 monster only gives a single point. Forget monsters. A normal human could not even slaughter 100 pigs in a day. But alchemy is a total gamble. Success rates are a nightmare. Even a Tier 2 alchemist making Tier 1 pills will fail occasionally. To pass the exam this way, you usually need the skills of a Tier 2 master. Either that, or you are a literal cheat code like my sugar mommy. She is the kind of player God treats like his favorite child. 1 batch for her results in over 10 perfect pills. And that was when I realized the gap between us was a total nightmare. Huai remembers the records of his past life. The peak record for refining a Tier 1 spirit recovery pill was 481 grams in a single batch. But that was only after he became a rank 6 alchemist. Weapon forging follows the same brutal logic, only it takes much longer. To have any real hope of passing this exam, you need to be at least a rank 2 forger. Huai stands with his hands tucked in his sleeves, completely unbothered. He isn't worried about the rich lady, and he certainly isn't worried about Luo Yuanhe. As the son of the city lord, Luo is a seasoned veteran who has been hunting monsters in the Star Burial Mountains since he was a child. For him, this trial is nothing. The real problem is Xiao He. She is a high-born lady with absolutely zero combat experience. Her cultivation has barely reached the second stage. In the world of politics and mind games, she is a master strategist. But drop her into a lethal secret realm and she is nothing but pure cannon fodder. A single monster of the same level could end her life before she even sees it coming. The rules make things even worse. There is no transferring points. The entire process is under strict surveillance. Huai can't even soften up a monster for her to land the finishing blow. To top it off, the teleportation is completely random. There is no way to group up or carry a teammate. He can't help her even if he wants to. She is officially on her own. The plaza is filled with the restless buzzing of the crowd. The noise is irritating, but the stakes are clear. Everyone knows exactly what it takes to pass, and the tension is reaching a breaking point. But for Xiao He, the real nightmare is just beginning. Over 100,000 people are packed into the massive square. At least half of them are delusional enough to think they've actually got what it takes to pass. Before the trial humbles them, everyone loves to brag about their hidden potential. After all, talk is cheap, but the chatter doesn't last long. Without warning, people start vanishing in massive waves. The old man in charge, Huang Yuan, clearly doesn't care about fair play. He didn't even give a signal before waving his hand and activating a massive group teleportation. Huai looks down at his identification token. The small jade plaque glows with a faint blue light slowly wrapping around his body. Suddenly, the silver ring on his right hand comes alive. A tiny tongue flicks out, eyeing the jade token like a gourmet snack. Huai pales and immediately pins the creature's head down. He begs the little ancestor to behave. If it eats the token now, his trial is over before it even starts. The snake isn't happy about being restrained. It sinks its fangs into Huai's finger out of spite, but finally stops drooling over the jade. The blue light intensifies, and space itself begins to twist and pull at his body. When the light finally fades, Huai finds himself standing on a frozen, windswept wasteland. Nearby, a cluster of dilapidated wooden shacks stands against the biting cold. He looks around, but the view is grim. Aside from 7 other candidates, the wasteland is completely dead, and that's when he realized he wasn't alone. Chapter 30. The Bloodline Huts. The air here was lethal. Even with a high-tier physique, the chill was bone-piercing. Rubbing his hands together, one young cultivator looked around, but the silence was absolute. Nobody answered his call. Fine. He turned toward a row of dilapidated wooden cabins, desperate for shelter. There were at least 30 of them, but every single door was slammed shut. If I were you, I wouldn't go in there. A voice cut through the frost. The boy turned, and his face instantly twisted in disbelief. Huai was standing there, casually pulling a massive, thick winter coat out of his spatial ring. Within 2 minutes, he was bundled up and looking incredibly cozy. This was insane. A standard spatial ring only has 2 or 3 cubic meters of space. Every inch is precious. Most people pack legendary weapons or life-saving pills. Who the hell wastes space on a bulky winter coat? Watching Huai relax in total comfort, the boy was burning with envy. He ignored the warning. Drawing his long sword, he kicked the wooden door open with a heavy thud. He scanned the dark interior, mocking the caution. What kind of danger could possibly be hiding in a dump like this? He stepped inside, sword ready. But he was about to learn that some warnings are written in blood. He lowers his head and steps into the cabin. But something is wrong. It is actually colder inside the house than it is out in the wind. He tells himself it is just because the door was open. He decides to shut it and warm up while the other idiots outside do the scouting. Once they have done all the heavy lifting, he will step out and claim the spoils. He calls this a high IQ move. With a loud bang, he slams the door shut. The small room plunges into total darkness, but the bone-chilling cold does not vanish. It intensifies. A voice whispers from the shadows, "Come, stay with me. Who is there?" His long sword clears its scabbard in a flash. With a flick of his wrist, dozens of freezing blade lights shred the air. In an instant, the dark silhouette appearing behind him is sliced into over a dozen pieces. To be fair, the kid has some real talent. That is why he was brave enough to enter the cabin first. But his smug smile does not last long. Those shredded fragments of shadow begin to knit back together. They reform into a blurry humanoid figure. He finally sees her face. Faint eyebrows, thin lips, pale, bloodless skin, and most terrifying of all, she has no pupils. She wears a snow-white dress with long hair trailing across the floor. Panic sets in. He kicks at the door and slashes wildly, but the exit is sealed tight. Suddenly, two ice-cold hands reach out from behind and wrap around his face. "How dare you, monster! Die!" His blade flashes with a blinding light, and that is when everything changed. This time, the blade sliced straight through the phantom. No damage, not even a scratch. Huai and the 6 other disciples could only watch in silence as the figure retreated into the cabin and slammed the door. Then, the chaos started. The sounds of clashing steel and a desperate struggle erupted from within. No one knew what horrors were unfolding behind those walls. The door rattled under the intensity of the fight until a sudden, furious roar shook the air. Seconds later, the door swung open. A frozen body was tossed into the snow like trash. It was a nearly naked ice sculpture, his face twisted in a mask of absolute terror. The ice began to glow and slowly fade. He had taken a fatal blow, triggering the protection mechanism of his identity token. He was alive, teleported safely outside the secret realm, but the sensation of dying is a scar that never heals. That kind of despair becomes a permanent nightmare. For a cultivator, it becomes a heart demon that can ruin their entire future. Some people just won't listen to good advice. Huai sighed. He watched the ice vanish and turned his gaze toward the row of wooden huts. These creatures were known as snow spirits. Modern legends paint them as beautiful maidens who fall in love with mortals and bear their children. But the oldest records tell a much darker story. In the original chronicles, these spirits are described as cold-blooded, heartless monsters. They manifest during the deadliest blizzards, building warm-looking huts to lure in unsuspecting travelers. And once a victim steps inside, the real nightmare begins. They lure travelers in, seduce them, and then steal their lives. In the abandoned ghost abyss, these blood spirits are considered bottom-tier bottom feeders. Their immunity to physical attacks is a total cheat code, but they have one massive weakness: fire. You don't even need spiritual flames. A common fire is enough to burn them to ash. But look at it this way. If you're going to fail the exam anyway, dying in the arms of a legendary beauty might actually be a reward. Of course, that's assuming she doesn't find you disgusting. One poor soul was just kicked out screaming after only 30 seconds. 30 seconds? Please. Huai couldn't do anything in 30 seconds. For him, we're talking 30 minutes, half a day, or even half a year. It all depends on how much the lady can handle. Now that he knew exactly what was hiding in the shadows, Huai didn't hesitate. He marched straight toward the largest cabin, while the other 6 candidates watched in stunned silence. They weren't ready to give up yet, but they weren't brave enough to follow. Huai pushed the door open, ignoring the wave of bone-chilling cold that swept over him. He stepped into the darkness without a word. Suddenly, he unleashed his sovereign aura, instantly flooding every single corner of the room. And that's when everything changed. The snow girl tried to shrink back. She knew he was bad news, but while she wanted to hide, Huai had no intention of letting her go. A massive hand reached under the bed, gripped her collar, and yanked her into the light like a stray kitten. The ghost was devastated. She was a vengeful spirit. This cabin was her territory, and yet he dragged her out by hand without a second thought. To her, it was the ultimate humiliation. But Huai didn't care about her dignity. He looked down at the frail girl and felt nothing but boredom. To a normal man, she might be a 10. Some might even call her exotic or hauntingly beautiful. But Huai was different. In his past life, he spent hundreds of years staring at the face of his wealthy wife, a woman whose beauty could ruin nations. She was hopelessly obedient and never said no to his eccentric tastes. Whether it was schoolgirl uniforms, gothic dresses, nurse outfits, or even the fictional characters from his memories of Earth, she wore them all. If he could find the clothes, she would put them on just for him. With a wife like that, these common flowers didn't stand a chance. Even someone like Xiao He, who was a literal goddess to the masses, meant nothing to him. If she ever worked up the courage to confess her love, Huai wouldn't be flattered. He would only have one response, a cold, heartless sneer. Huai pats her shoulder like a true bro. "You're a good person," he says, but in his eyes, this legendary snow girl is nothing but a total eyesore. The longer he looks, the uglier she gets. He stares at her with pure disgust. "I'll give you 2 minutes," he growls. "Call every one of your friends hiding in those houses right now. If you don't, I'm burning your entire clan to the ground. Don't doubt me. You might be a professional killer, but when it comes to arson, I'm the Grandmaster." This is the start of Chapter 31, Huai's Lazy Life. Far away, the Elder Hall of the Moon Masking Sect isn't what you'd expect. Forget grand architecture and towering pillars. It's a tiny, cramped space barely big enough for a dozen chairs. Honestly, calling it a dark room is more accurate. Inside, every single elder is frozen. Their eyes are glued to the massive screen at the front. That screen is a shadow projection stone. Using ancient formations, it mirrors almost every corner of the secret realm. Tens of thousands of candidates are currently fighting for their lives, tracked by their identity tokens. With so many people, the elders usually don't pay attention. Most screens flicker by in a heartbeat. To get their focus, you have to be extraordinary. Right now, every eye is locked onto Huai and Chu Siyu. This kid's luck isn't just good, it's explosive. His random teleportation drop point was so perfect, it defied logic. And that's when the elders realized that things were about to get crazy. Unlike the living hell Huai is facing, this place is a literal paradise. No monsters, no demons. It is the ultimate god-tier start. While gathering herbs, Chu Siyu strikes a gold mine. He digs up a crystal-clear azure bead. If Huai were here, he would be sighing at the sky, complaining about how boringly easy the trial is. He would say that life at the top is far too lonely. But Chu Siyu is not that shameless. He stays humble, tucks the spirit bead away, and gets back to work. He even finds a wisteria grassroot, a rare ingredient used for Tier 2 pills. Watching from the shadows, Peak Master Chen Tairu cannot hide his respect. He has studied Chu Siyu's file. He knows about the struggle, the background, and the deadly grudge with the first prince of the Great Desolate Dynasty. Chu Siyu finds a natural cave, secures the perimeter, and pulls out his cauldron. It is a piece of total junk, a low-quality tool for beginners with zero spiritual power and no special buffs. But that does not stop him. The fire ignites, the furnace warms, the refinement has officially begun, and that is when the real gamble starts. Chu Siyu's small face is a mask of pure focus. Her dark eyes shimmer with the light of 1,000 stars. Her movements are seamless, flowing like water as she tosses herb after herb into the furnace. Under the searing heat, impurities vanish, leaving behind nothing but pure medicinal liquid. She doesn't hesitate for a single second. Once the extraction is complete, she uses her spiritual power to force the liquids together, compressing and refining them with brutal efficiency. Most alchemists are gentle, carefully nurturing the pill like a delicate flower. But Chu Siyu, she treats her furnace like a blacksmith's forge. Her flames transform into a massive sledgehammer, ruthlessly pounding the unformed pill embryo. Strike after strike, the heavy blows echo through the room, leaving the audience trembling in fear. It is a crude, heartless, and violent method, but it is undeniably effective. One elder actually laughs out loud at the ridiculous sight. The others just stare, their faces twisted in confusion. Even if they aren't masters, they know the 5 fundamental steps of alchemy: refining, purifying, condensing, nurturing, and forming. Chu Siyu follows the rules for the first 2 steps, then throws the manual out the window. She crushes the final 3 stages into one, using her fire like a hammer to beat the pill into existence. It is like a complex math problem. While everyone else is carefully showing their work step by step, Chu Siyu just skips straight to the final answer, and that's when everything changed. While others struggled through every step of the process, this girl simply wrote down the final answer and called it a day. In a normal exam, a 10-point question would only earn her 3 points for skipping the work. But alchemy isn't a math test. In this world, the result is the only thing that matters. Grandmaster Chen Tairu didn't need to see her process. He could tell the pills were perfect just by watching the screen. As Chu Siyu extinguished her cauldron's flames and pulled 3 glowing rounded pills out with her spiritual power, the room fell dead silent. The elders who were just mocking her suddenly forgot how to speak. Chen Tairu took a deep breath and pointed directly at the girl on the screen. He declared that she would join the Spirit Wind sect immediately as an inner disciple. If she was willing to officially bow to him, he would make her his personal legacy disciple on the spot. The other elders could only look on with pure envy. A 16-year-old rank 2 alchemist who works twice as fast as the competition is unheard of. At this rate, she already had the talent of a rank 3 master. The Spirit Wind sect hadn't just found a student. They had discovered a literal treasure. Nobody cared about her grudge with the prince of the Great Desolate Dynasty anymore. It didn't matter if the prince was the top disciple of the Heavenly Frost Palace's first elder. Did the Heavenly Frost Palace think they were special? To those who spend their lives fighting demons in the trenches of the Ghost Abyss, they were nothing. And that's when the real power struggle began. Emperor Yanlei isn't pulling any punches. He claims he can crush the ancient emperor of Tianhan with a single hand tied behind his back. To him, the first prince is nothing more than a lowly disciple. He dares them to try and kidnap his people from the Yanlei sect if they have the guts. Elder Chen Tairu is even more ruthless. He refuses to let anyone touch his student. He vows to beat the absolute hell out of anyone who tries until there is nothing left of them. Back in the darkness, a scribe records Chu Siyu's name into the official logs. Great Elder Huangyuan waves his hand, shifting the magical screens through thousands of participants. Everyone has a different strategy. Some are true grinders. Their talent is mediocre, but they hunt demons like possessed madmen. In less than 2 hours, one warrior has already racked up nearly 100 points. But the elders aren't impressed. Constant slaughter drains the soul and the body. One wrong move, and he will succumb to his inner demons. Then there are the opportunists. They think hunting is too much work. Instead, they scour the landscape for the 20 hidden spirit beads. But this secret realm is massive. It stretches across the size of an entire nation. Finding 20 fist-sized beads is like searching for a needle in the ocean. These beads aren't just a hidden bonus. They are the ultimate test of a cultivator's fate. The evaluation of the new recruits begins once more. The elders watch closely, looking for those with iron wills and the discipline to avoid the temptation of easy shortcuts. The screen flickers, carving names into the official records: Chu Siyu, Tang Sang, Li Feng. Among them, one student stands out as the gold standard, Luo Yuanhe. Luo Yuanhe is the perfect model for this assessment. He isn't a heaven-defying genius, and his cultivation isn't the strongest. But his combat experience is elite, and his mind is as steady as a mountain. He knows when to fight and when to rest. He scouts the demons before he strikes. He even knows how to lay complex traps. He is the textbook definition of a top-tier student, but then the elders turn their eyes to the next screen, and their blood pressure hits the ceiling. If we don't eliminate this brat now, he'll become a disaster, one elder growls. The council is speechless. Their sense of justice is screaming at what they see. The boy on the screen is Shu Huan, and he isn't exactly testing his limits. In the middle of a frozen wasteland, Shu Huan has started a massive bonfire. He's lounging in a reclining chair he brought from who knows where, surrounded by a full set of pots, pans, and kitchen supplies. But it's his staff that has the elders shaking with rage. 2 deadly snow maidens, spirits that should be hunting him, are standing over the fire, They are trembling with fear, but they don't dare to complain. When the heat becomes too much for their frozen bodies, they scramble into the snow to cool down. As soon as they recover, they rush back to the fire to continue preparing his meal. The elders have never seen such blatant disrespect for a trial. To them, Shu Huan isn't a student. He's a menace that needs to be stopped, and they had no idea that this was only the beginning. While every other candidate is fighting for their lives, Su Huai is busy living his best life. In the middle of a literal blizzard, over a dozen beautiful snowgirls are dancing just for him. Their short skirts flutter in the wind as they perform provocative moves that would make a saint blush. But it gets worse. The most powerful snow girl among them isn't attacking him. No, she's giving him a professional massage. The elders watching the trial are absolutely livid. Their eyes burn with pure rage as they watch this scandalous display. They sent him here for a brutal examination, but he turned it into a luxury vacation. Hours have passed, and while others are earning points, Su Huai's score is a big fat 0. He's treating this holy trial like his own private harem, ignoring the world like a decadent emperor. Inside the blizzard, Su Huai's voice cuts through the wind. Snow 2, Snow 3, more chili on the grill. Snow 1, put some muscle into it. Why are you as useless as Xiao He? Can't you even rub a shoulder properly? He turns his eyes to the others and scoffs. Snow 4, Snow 5. You don't even know the Gokuraku Jodo dance, and you call yourselves professional snow girls? Pathetic. He even shouts at another one, Snow 11, stop messing with your skirt. If you show any more, the censors are going to ban us all. Nearby, 6 other students are huddled together in a tiny wooden shack. They watch in stunned silence as Su Huai commands his army of 20 snow girls with total authority. The contrast is devastating. While they struggle to even stay warm in the freezing cold, he is living like a king. They don't have points, they don't have food, and they've been starving for an entire day. Even the shack they're hiding in was a gift of pity from Su Huai himself. And that's when they realized this wasn't a competition, it was his playground. Watching the snow maidens cook up a feast of fragrant stir-fry, the group could only stare, their mouths watered with pure, bitter envy. Sometimes, the gap between elites and losers is wider than the gap between humans and dogs. One boy slumped onto his bed, his voice trembling with a soul-crushing question. At this rate, they wouldn't earn a single point. And if they failed the exam now, their futures were over. Another boy sighed, his hope fading fast. Their only choice was to rest and find a path out of these frozen plains. But a journey like that would take forever. Still, staying here was just a waste of time. Points were impossible to find in this territory. Why don't we just hunt the snow maidens? One whispered. The suggestion was met with instant dread. Those monsters were now the big shot's personal servants. Touch one of them, and the boss would turn you into a side dish for his next drink. The boy by the window wiped his tears and finally looked away. Even if the boss didn't step in, they were still dead. The snow maiden serving the boss was a rank 4 monster. Against them, she wouldn't even need a second move to end their lives. It was time to pack up and get out. They had to find weaker monsters to hunt if they wanted to survive the night. They tried to motivate each other, but their eyes kept drifting back to the camp. There, the snow maidens were putting on a show, dancing for their new master. The boys could only watch in stunned silence. As expected of a true legend, the man really knew how to live, and that was the terrifying reality of this world. Why bother with immortality? Opening a high-end brothel and swimming in gold sounds much better. And as a man of justice, I'd obviously be the first one to buy a VIP membership. After a heavy meal, Su Huai took a long nap. He didn't wake up until the sun began to set. 8 hours had already passed since the trial began. While every other candidate was fighting for their lives, Su Huai just stretched his arms. It was finally time to get to work. He called for Sueda. The level 4 snow spirit stopped building her snowman and rushed to his side. She eagerly asked if he needed a shoulder massage. Su Huai told her to cut the act. He had a serious question. He needed to know if there were other monster tribes nearby. Zueda's expression shifted as she pointed toward the south. That's where the snow demon fortress stood. It was home to over 40 brutal demons. They were her mortal enemies. In fact, their leader had captured and eaten her older sister. Huai was stunned. Her sister was a level 5 spirit. If a level 5 could be eaten so easily, what kind of monsters were they dealing with? Zueda explained that this secret realm was a massive prison. It was filled with ancient captives caught by human powerhouses from a forgotten era. Her people were from the Ghost Clan, while the demons hailed from the Feathered Demon Cave. They had been at each other's throats for generations. And now, Huai was heading straight for their front door. Huai didn't need to hear another word. He smacked his lips, a cold glint in his eyes. It was time to stop talking and start moving. His command was simple. They were going to crash the party. Zueda hesitated for only a second before letting out a piercing, high-pitched shriek. Suddenly, the silent snowscape crawled to life. From every hidden corner and frozen crevice, snow girls began to emerge, lining up before Huai and their leader. In a brutal place like this secret realm, any creature capable of holding its own territory is a natural-born killer. The squad was small, but the power levels were undisputed. Including Zueda, there were 22 snow girls in total, 1 at rank 4, 2 at rank 3, and the rest were all a solid rank 2. In the grand hierarchy of this realm, this group was an elite force, a wild card capable of shifting the balance of power in an instant. Huai wasn't interested in waiting. He rallied his frosty cavalry and charged straight toward the south. When the snow girls realized they were headed for a showdown with the snow demon, their excitement turned primal. They instantly shed their human disguises, revealing their true, terrifying forms as vengeful spirits. Their pale skin pulsed with silver veins, and their fingers elongated into razor-sharp claws. With matted hair flying and white dresses fluttering like burial shrouds, they looked like a nightmare brought to life. Just moments ago, they looked like top-tier idols who could gain 1 million followers overnight. But after this monstrous transformation, any fan would skip the unfollow button and go straight to blocking and reporting. Their target was finally in sight, the Snow Demon's castle. It was an ancient, sprawling manor-style fortress that reeked of history and raw physical power. The stage was set for a massacre, and Huai was about to bring the house down. A simple-minded snow demon building a masterpiece like this? Not a chance. This ancient castle actually belonged to a vampire viscount. Zueda explained the truth to Huai. Blood demons are better known as the vampire race. And strictly speaking, they aren't even part of the demon clan. They belong to the ghost tribe. While you can find them in the Feather Demon Cave, everyone knows the strongest vampires and their largest settlements are buried deep within the abandoned ghost abyss. It's their true birthplace, and their allegiance to the ghost tribe is absolute. But let's get back to the point. This particular viscount had been close friends with Zueda's sister for hundreds of years. However, everything changed when the viscount fell for a young girl who had entered this realm to train. She was a total battle maniac, always carrying a long sword that never left its sheath. From the moment she stepped into the secret realm, she challenged every single tribal leader she could find. She targeted the Viscount most of all. As a rank 6 powerhouse and the king of this region, he was the ultimate prey. At first, the girl was completely outmatched. Before long, they were fighting on equal ground. But by the end, she was straight up crushing him. Once she realized that fighting the Viscount couldn't help her level up anymore, she simply stopped showing up. But you have to remember one thing. The vampire race is defined by their hypocrisy, and that was his first mistake. Bloodkin are pathetic, sentimental creatures. They can watch their lovers die without blinking, but rejection, that is where they draw the line. Male bloodkin love to seduce human women, building a deep bond just to slaughter them at the peak of their beauty. They don't want a wife, they want a trophy corpse for their collection. When a young human girl left this realm, the local viscount spiraled into a desperate obsession. He couldn't stand the cold shoulder. He waited at the exit of the secret realm for days, trembling with anticipation for her return. But when he finally cornered her to confess his love, the girl didn't say a word. She simply drew her sword. It wasn't even a fight. She pierced his chest with a single, devastating strike of sword chi and walked away without looking back. The great Viscount was left as nothing more than a cooling corpse. With the Viscount dead, my sister led our people into his abandoned fortress. We became the second masters of the castle. For a while we were safe. But in this world, peace is a lie. The Snow Demon tribe was captured and dumped into our secret realm like trash. Among them was a Tier 6 powerhouse, a monster we had no hope of defeating. My sister stayed behind to cover our retreat while we fled into the frozen wasteland. Now we are forced to survive in a rotting wooden shack, waiting for an end that never comes. Xueda looked up, his eyes burning with a freezing rage. My lord, if you grant me my revenge, I will serve you for eternity. He was offering his soul for a chance at blood. And little did he know, his story was only just beginning. She was the legendary leader of the Snow Spirits, a rank 4 demonic entity. She had just humbled herself to offer her services, only to be flat out rejected. Who did this guy think he was? Then it hit her. Huai was an absolute powerhouse whose cultivation level was completely invisible. Fine then. She would accept the disrespect. She blinked her eyes, acting weak and helpless. If you let me eat that blood demon, I can reach rank 5 immediately, she pleaded. But she had one more card to play, a third form. In an instant, Xueda transformed into a tiny, fluffy ball. Short limbs, round body, and maximum cuteness. She looked exactly like a Poro from that famous game in his past life. Suhuai stared. He was actually tempted. It wasn't because he had a secret soft spot for cute things, and it wasn't because she was being obedient. It was business. His wealthy patron's birthday was approaching, and he needed a gift that would actually make an impression. This fluffy snow spirit fit the bill perfectly. She was female, strong enough to protect her owner, and undeniably adorable. Most importantly, she was a gift that simply could not be refused. If you give an expensive gift to a girl who is just a friend, things get awkward. Most girls will decline just to avoid looking like gold diggers. But a mysterious, priceless pet? That was a masterstroke. After all, no girl can resist a cute kitten, especially one that packs a rank 5 punch. And that's when Suhuai realized he had found the ultimate cheat code for gift giving. Are you guys taking notes? These are the secrets to winning a girl's heart. Welcome to Chapter 33. Things are about to get ugly. The Blood Demon Castle sits perched on a jagged cliffside. Below it lies a dark pine forest and a shimmering lake. Standing by the water, Suhuai can't help but think of a certain famous magic school in the English countryside. But there is no Dumbledore waiting in this fortress. There is only a horde of bloodthirsty monsters. It is time to start the show. Suhuai gives the order to challenge them. Big Snow steps forward and reveals his true form. He lets out a piercing, ghostly howl that echoes through the valley. It is a sound of pure terror. Small animals scatter in a panicked frenzy. The response is immediate. A roar erupts from the castle walls. A pack of red, ape-like monsters leaps from the cliffs. They land across the lake, facing off against the snow maidens. The air turns cold. Their leader steps forward. The blood demon leader stands over 10 feet tall. A hideous scar tears across his face. His massive tusks are stained a disgusting yellow and black. This monster clearly doesn't believe in dental hygiene, or maybe the stench is a tactical choice, a biological attack to stun his enemies in the heat of battle. The beast glares across the water and snarls. He asks if Juefanes has come here to die. That is the true name of Big Snow, and that is when the real slaughter begins. He didn't bother to reply. Following Suhuai's signal, he took a single step forward. In an instant, the temperature plummeted. Half the lake froze solid as the ground turned to ice. A massive army of snow spirits surged forward, charging toward the blood demons with zero regard for their own lives. "You're seeking death," the blood demon leader roared. Ignored and insulted, he pounded the ground in a rage before leaping high into the air. He targeted Xueda directly. Seeing their leader lead the charge, the rest of the demons followed, screaming for blood. When two armies clash, the strongest meet first. The level 4 blood demon leader sensed that Shui Da's power hadn't increased at all. He licked his yellowed fangs in anticipation. To him, these snow spirits weren't enemies. They were gourmet meals. Their flesh was tender and their blood was as clear as crystal. They were better than the finest sashimi on earth. He still remembered the taste from years ago. Unfortunately, the level 5 snow spirit he had devoured used its final breath to curse him. That soul curse trapped him within a 5-kilometer radius of his castle. If not for that seal, he would have turned the entire snow spirit race into livestock long ago. But today, his prey had delivered themselves to his door. He wasn't going to let a single one escape. As the gap between them vanished, the blood demon leader's excitement reached a breaking point. And that's when everything changed. The beast was ecstatic. He could already imagine the biting, the ravaging. He could practically hear the screams of despair coming from his prey. But halfway through her charge, the vengeful spirit Shu smirked. Her eyes were filled with pure mockery. She sidestepped with perfect timing, revealing the man hiding directly behind her. Huai, a human? The snow monster leader didn't think twice. Over the years, he had devoured countless humans who wandered into this secret realm to train. Surely, not every human could be as terrifying as that woman with the sword. The young man felt the crushing pressure of the beast. He drew a slow semicircle in the frost with his foot. He took a deep breath. His right arm surged with explosive power, and then he unleashed a devastating punch. The ground shattered. The snow monster leader's face twisted in total shock. His massive frame stumbled back, his arms completely numb. It felt like he had slammed into a wall of reinforced steel. He realized too late, another monster had been born among the humans. But then the beast saw something even more confusing. Huai looked just as shocked as his body went flying backward through the air. Huai usually hated playing the weakling. He never felt the need to hide his godlike strength. But there was just one problem. This was the entrance exam for the Yanue Immortal sect, and if he didn't start acting soon, he was going to fail the most important test of his life. 17 years old, a rank 4 snow maiden already tamed. Most would call that a genius. Trading blows with a rank 6 snow demon, that is monstrous talent. But one-shotting it, that is a death sentence. The sect elders are likely watching this exam via livestream. If Huai reveals his true power, they won't see a disciple. They will see a spy. He can't exactly tell them he is only here to pick up girls. No one would believe him. Exposing his full strength has consequences. The elders will grow suspicious. Instead of passing the exam, Huai might end up on a dissection table for research. He has to act. He needs to play the role of a stoic hero hiding his pain. The plan is simple: fall behind, struggle against the snow demon, then trigger a fake mid-battle breakthrough to snatch a narrow victory. Nobody understands the Dragon King trope better than Huai. He prepares to spit out a dramatic spray of blood, but biting his tongue hurts way too much. Change of plans. He holds his breath until his face turns purple. He makes his right hand tremble with fake exhaustion. He glares at the beast through gritted teeth. This snow demon, it is too strong. The blood demon leader gulps, his eyes flickering with sudden uncertainty. But Huai gives him no time to think. With a deafening roar, our protagonist screams, "Monster, hand over your life!" In a flash, he lunges forward. The demon is furious. His tiny brain can't handle complex logic, but he knows one thing. Being hunted by a mere human is the ultimate insult. With a primal howl, he lunges back. What follows is a brutal fist-to-flesh brawl. Pure, unadulterated carnage. 5 minutes pass. The demon leader has minor scratches, while Huai is mangled and swaying on the edge of death. 10 minutes pass. The demon is now heavily wounded, but Huai is still there, teetering on the brink of collapse. 30 minutes pass. The demon is literally dying, and yet Huai is still just barely hanging on. Someone call a referee because this guy is straight up cheating. Even a brainless monster can see something is wrong. It is like Huai has a health lock enabled. Realizing he is fighting a literal glitch, the demon's courage breaks. He starts to back away, desperate to retreat. but Su Huai sees right through him. His body suddenly trembles with a surge of terrifying power as he lets out a manic laugh that shakes the heavens. His aura explodes, skyrocketing past his limits. Against all odds, at the final second, he did it. He actually broke through to rank 5 strength. Fate was smiling on him. But for the blood demon, the nightmare was only just beginning. Today is the day you die. It is time for everything to burn. The blood demon leader did not wait for an invitation. He abandoned his subordinates and vanished into the dense forest like a coward. He finally realized the truth. Su Huai was not just a warrior. He was a complete psychopath. The boy had been playing with his food this entire time. Su Huai claimed he had finally reached level 5. The demon was insulted. "You mean you were only level 4 during our fight?" How much power was this monster actually hiding? Su Huai did not care for questions. He plunged into the shadows of the cliffside forest to finish the hunt. Back on the frozen lake, the tide was turning. Without their leader, the remaining demons lost their will to fight. Their magic resistance meant nothing now. Blood One and the sisters began a systematic execution, picking them off one by one. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Su Huai emerged from the tree line. He was covered in blood, dragging the massive corpse of the demon leader behind him. The battle was over. The Blood Demon clan was officially extinct, but victory came with a heavy price. Su Huai was on the verge of death, his internal energy shattered and his breathing ragged. 3 sisters, 18, 19, and 22, had been slaughtered in the enemy's final desperate struggle. But do not expect a funeral. Except for the evolving Blood One, these spirits lacked a human heart. They did not feel the sting of loss or the weight of death. While their sisters lay cold on the ice, the rest of the pack circled the lake in a twisted celebration. To these creatures, the cost of life meant nothing compared to the thrill of the kill, and that was only the beginning. The eerie laughter of the white ghost echoed through the air. Su Huai tossed the blood demon leader's corpse aside like yesterday's trash. Committed to his role until the very end, he looked toward the sky and flashed a signature, Mocking Grin, Chapter 34. The struggle for the Spirit Pearl. Inside a darkened monitoring room, an elder slammed his fist onto the table, his teeth gritted in pure annoyance. Su Huai had talent, but that smug smile was unbearable. The elder wanted to wipe that luck off his face personally. The other masters told him to stay calm. It was time to get serious and analyze the enigma known as Su Huai. To these seasoned veterans, his perfect acting was actually full of holes. They saw right through him. The breakthrough in the spirit array, a total lie. His rank 5 cultivation level, pure deception. After debating his every move, the elders reached a unanimous conclusion. Su Huai was a hidden predator, a schemer who loved to hide his true power and bait his enemies into a trap. As for his actual strength, they estimated he was at rank 6. They were certain he couldn't be any higher. After all, his spirit root was only a mediocre grade 4. In their world, a talent that low meant he had already hit his absolute limit. He was a fox, but a fox with a ceiling. Or so they thought. Because in the world of cultivation, the elders are usually the last to realize when they've been played. The elders finally finished their heated debate, but Great Elder Huang Yuan remains silent. He has been watching Su Huai's performance on the screen with a numb, unreadable expression. Finally, he rubs his temples and breaks the silence. He tells the group that no matter how much power Su Huai is hiding, his growth is a blessing for the sect. And for the entire human race. The other elders are stunned. They can't understand why the Great Elder is suddenly so certain. Without a word, Huang Yuan points to the data on the screen. It reveals the truth. Su Huai is a member of the Su family from Black Iron City. He is the grandson of the legendary Su Changge. The atmosphere shifts instantly. Shangguan Shu, the red-haired master of the battle hall, sits bolt upright. He laughs, claiming that if the kid is truly Su Changge's grandson, then the battle hall is claiming him. He criticizes Su Huai's fight with the blood demon, calling it sloppy and full of missed openings. He's convinced the boy just needs a little bit of his expert training. Huang Yuan looks at him and scoffs internally. He thinks to himself that if the two of them actually fought, the duel wouldn't last 60 seconds. Su Huai would be the one kneeling on the ground, begging Shangguanshu not to die from a single hit. But he keeps those thoughts to himself. Su Huai's lineage has completely erased his final shred of doubt. He doesn't know how the boy became this strong, or why he worked so hard to infiltrate the Immortal sect, but it doesn't matter. Being the grandson of Su Changge makes him a man who must be trusted. Even if Su Huai turned out to be a villain, his bloodline changed everything, and that was a secret the rest of the world wasn't ready for. The Moon Mask Immortal sect couldn't touch him. In fact, they didn't dare. They were forced to handle him with the softest touch imaginable, guiding him rather than commanding him. Why? Because the entire sect and the entire Xia Immortal realm owed Su Changge a debt so massive it could never be repaid. Huang Yuan ended the debate with a single, cold sentence. He warned Shangguanshu to back off. "Don't interfere with his choices," Huang Yuan commanded. "Let him do whatever he wants." Shangguanshu frowned, ready to argue, but Huang Yuan cut him off before he could speak. This wasn't just a suggestion. Huang Yuan took a slow sip of tea and dropped a bombshell. This was the direct will of the great emperor himself. Shangguanshu sighed, forced to obey. In his eyes, Su Huai was a once-in-a-lifetime talent. He wanted to pour endless resources into the boy, ignite his spirit lamp to the limit, and throw him onto the front lines to be forged in blood. But the emperor's plans were absolute. Finally, Su Huai's name was added to the secret ledger. This wasn't just any list. It was a restricted roster of candidates handpicked by the elders after rigorous observation. If Su Huai passed the upcoming trial, he would bypass the crowds and become an inner disciple. In this world, the gap between the outer and inner sect is the difference between heaven and earth. One offers scraps, while the other offers a path to godhood. But inside the secret realm, Su Huai had no idea the highest powers in the sect were arguing over his future. After a brutal, exhausting battle, he wasn't worrying about his status. Instead, he was lounging comfortably on a chair, being carried through the realm by two female disciples like royalty. He was relaxed, completely unaware that his name was already moving the world. But in a place like this, peace never lasts for long. Su Huai stepped into the Blood Demon Castle. On his identity token, his score flickered, surging from 0 to 100,000 instantly. Even though his blood spirits did the dirty work, those kills weren't even credited to his name. He didn't care. 100,000 points was more than enough to secure the #1 spot in this exam. And in this world, the top rank always comes with legendary reward. For the next 2 days, Su Huai rested within the fortress. He officially renamed the stronghold Hogwarts Castle. Don't ask why. It was purely for the nostalgia. He swept through the halls, packing every single treasure into his storage ring. As for the first owner's collection of former lovers, the blood demon had already devoured them all. By the 3rd day, Xue Da had finished consuming the blood demon leader's essence. His power exploded, breaking through to the middle of the 5th rank. With Su Huai's help, a powerful barrier was established around the castle. Xue Da was now the undisputed master of the blood spirits. On the 4th day, Su Huai left his main force behind to guard Hogwarts. He took only the strongest spirits and headed toward the Great Wasteland. The temperature in the central region was scorching. 4 snow maidens carried Su Huai's lounge chair as he relaxed. Beside him, the 5th rank Xue Da released a constant flow of freezing air. He was a zero-energy, high-efficiency smart air conditioner. With his subordinates surrounding him, Su Huai looked less like a student and more like an ancient demon king on a casual stroll. But in this wasteland, even a king can be hunted. And that's when everything changed. After leaving the Prince of Emptiness behind, Su Huai began his next move. He had already grilled Xue Da for every detail regarding this secret realm. According to Xue Da, the territory is split into 5 massive zones. Each one is ruled by a terrifying rank 6 demon construct. The Lord of the Snow Tundra was once a vampire viscount. After his death, he transformed into that monstrous blood demon, but the real prize lies in the south. The southern region is a paradise of resources, filled with shifting valleys and overflowing spiritual energy. It is the ultimate breeding ground for rare spirit herbs. However, a peak rank 6 flood dragon rules these lands. Fortunately for the examinees, this beast spends most of its time in a deep slumber. Huai calculated that all the alchemists and refiners must have been dropped in the south. That meant it was time to go find his favorite rich girl. He assumed that without his protection, she would be trembling with fear in such a lethal environment. But Huai couldn't have been more wrong. Chu Siyu wasn't struggling at all. Blessed with God-tier luck, she had already gathered more than enough points to pass the exam. While out gathering herbs, she even managed to make her first friend. This new companion was a total loser with only rank 2 cultivation. His luck was bottom tier. He tried to set a trap for a monster, but he completely underestimated its power. Instead of catching prey, he was bitten by a venomous snake. He stumbled blindly into the valley and collapsed, nearly facing total elimination. But at his darkest moment, his luck finally turned around. He was rescued at the very last second. And that's when everything changed. The rich girl picked up a stray and brought him back to her hideout. Meet Xiao He, the unluckiest guy in the entire secret realm. While Huai is a force of nature, this guy is at the absolute bottom of the food chain. But for Chu Siyu, his weakness was a blessing. Since he posed zero threat, she finally let her guard down. In fact, she could probably beat him senseless with one hand tied behind her back. Cao Yi was beyond grateful. He treated her like his savior, ready to serve her in this life and the next. When he discovered she was an alchemist, he appointed himself her loyal guardian. Though let's be honest, his only real use in a fight would be letting a monster eat him and hoping it chokes to death. Still, his social skills were top tier. He managed to do the impossible. He became friends with a girl who suffers from social anxiety so severe she forgets how to breathe around strangers. For a moment, everything was peaceful. But on the evening of the 4th day, their identity tokens suddenly flared to life. A map of the entire realm appeared before their eyes, carrying a grim announcement for every candidate. The trial is now half over, and that's when everything changed. The system announcement drops like a bombshell. The exact locations of 20 spirit beads have been broadcast to every participant. The voice tells them to prioritize friendship over points, but in this cutthroat exam, that is a death sentence. Maps are issued, the hunt is on. Suddenly, Chu Siyu's bag erupts with a blinding green light. For Cao Yi, the world stands still. Her first thought, they are finished. Cao Yi isn't the type to bite the hand that feeds her. With her family's massive merchant guild waiting for her, she was already prepared to fail this test and live out her life as a wealthy heiress. But now, their position is exposed to every hunter in the area. 2 defenseless girls holding a high-value target. They are officially the prey. This is the template of the Destiny Girl. Cao Yi realizes they are trapped. This valley offers no cover and their cave has no back exit. If they get cornered now, there is no escape. Cao Yi turns to her friend with desperation and tells her they have to run. Now Chu Siyu bites her lip. She has always been soft. When her aunt moved to steal her parents' inheritance, Xiu simply walked away rather than fight. She wants to be tough, but her crippling social anxiety wins every time. She is terrified of everything. If she were alone, she would have surrendered long ago. But something is about to change. If anyone else had found that spirit pearl, they would have tossed it aside just to stay alive. To a master like him, 1,000 points was a joke, the equivalent of refining a single tier 3 pill. He didn't need the points, but he couldn't just leave. Not while Cao Yi was there. He knew the girl he had rescued lacked the strength to pass the trial on her own. He wanted to give her the pearl, but he wasn't exactly a social butterfly. He didn't know how to give a gift without it feeling like a handout. He needed the perfect opening. On the other side, Chu Siyu was struggling with her own heart. This was her first friend in 16 years. She was terrified that one wrong move would shatter the bond they had just built. She looked down at her hand, still held firmly in Cao Yi's grasp. She realized that without a spirit pearl, Cao Yi would fail the exam. After 3 seconds of silence, she made a choice. She would protect the pearl on her person no matter the cost. I, I know a place, she whispered. Before he could even ask for details, she was moving. She quickly packed her cauldron and cleared out her medicinal herbs. She led Cao Yi out of the cave and deep into the heart of the valley. It was a hidden paradise, lush with rare spiritual plants growing in every corner. They followed a winding, crystal-clear stream until they reached the edge of a pool 10 meters wide. And that's when they realized they weren't alone. Standing at the edge of a bottomless pool, Cao Yi's heart raced. Siyu, what are we doing here? Who could possibly help us in a place like this? Siyu didn't answer. She simply knelt by the water's edge. She pulled a medicinal pill from her bag, crushed it into powder, and scattered it across the surface. In less than 5 minutes, the water began to boil. Massive purple-black scales shimmered beneath the ripples. It was a terrifying sight. Cao Yi felt her limbs go numb with fear. She grabbed Siyu's arm, begging her to run. A monster was coming for them. But Siyu didn't flinch. "Don't be afraid," she said. "Little Black won't hurt us." That's when the creature finally surfaced. It was a massive serpent, thick as a water bucket. Its belly was a pale gray, but its back was covered in scales that glinted with a lethal, dark purple light. Those emerald green eyes locked onto Cao Yi instantly. Her legs turned to jelly. She was trapped. She recognized this beast from the ancient records. This was the purple-scaled python. It was a solitary predator with a violent sense of territory. But there was a darker secret. This beast carried the bloodline of earth dragons. In this world, dragons are the supreme rulers of the demon race. A pure-blood dragon is an absolute overlord. By the time they reach adulthood, they possess at least level 7 cultivation power. Any creature related to the dragon race is a nightmare. No matter how thin the lineage, they are destined to be true great demons. And the beast standing before them was no exception. This snake is special. Its bloodline is terrifyingly pure. The ancient records are clear. Once this species reaches maturity, it hits rank 6 strength. They grow 100 meters long and sprout a single horn to rule their territory as kings. This purple spirit python isn't a full adult yet, but the protrusion on its head proves it is close. This thing is at least a rank 5 powerhouse. Cao Yi couldn't believe his eyes. Why did Chu Siyu know a high-level demon like this? They even seemed like best friends. Sensing his confusion, Siyu reached out and stroked the python's massive head. She fed it several rank 2 pills as if they were snacks. She calmly explained that she found Little Black injured while gathering herbs 2 days ago. Since the snake couldn't move, she just gave it some medicine to help. Cao Yi's eye twitched in disbelief. So, this giant monster was just like him. Just another poor soul rescued by Chu Siyu's kindness. But he had to wonder, how does this ditzy girl keep picking up such insane things? First, it was a spirit pearl, then a wounded rank 5 beast, and finally, a poisoned, unconscious version of himself. Calling her the daughter of destiny wasn't even an exaggeration. If she were a man, her life would be a cheat code legend. Her luck is simply broken. She goes out for herbs and accidentally tames a high-level beast. She goes out again and rescues a wealthy partner to provide her a life of luxury. This was the ultimate protagonist template, and Cao Yi realized he was staring at a living legend.